Tonight, one drop of blood will change everything. Elena Rossi, a struggling seamstress in Venice, never imagined that donating blood to save a dying stranger would drag her into a world of violence, corruption, and deadly secrets. The man she saved is Adrian Valente, a feared underworld figure who has just uncovered a monstrous conspiracy that trades human lives like currency. Now his enemies are hunting her. Now she has nowhere to run. Now she must choose: hide and watch her world burn, or stand beside a dangerous man and fight back against shadows that have ruled Venice for far too long. Follow this story to the end. Hit like, and comment with your city so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The needle slipped, and Elena Rossi watched a bead of blood rise on her fingertip. She pressed it against her work apron without looking up. The burgundy velvet beneath her hands wasn't going to hem itself, and Signora Castellano would arrive at 9 tomorrow morning expecting perfection. Elena had learned years ago that wealthy clients didn't care about exhaustion or bleeding fingers. They cared about seams. The workshop was silent except for the ancient sewing machine's rhythmic clatter. Outside, Venice had settled into its late-night quiet, the kind that felt thick and close in the narrow streets near Cannaregio. Elena glanced at the clock. Nearly midnight. Her father would be asleep by now, his breathing shallow and labored in the small bedroom they shared above the shop. The medication he needed cost more than she made in a week, which meant she couldn't afford to lose clients like Castellano. She finished the hem, cut the thread, and held up the dress. Even in the workshop's dim light, it was beautiful. The kind of garment that would float through some grand palazzo while she remained here, surrounded by scraps and debt. Elena's phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but the number was local. Unknown. Pronto? Is this Elena Rossi? A woman's voice, strained and professional. The blood donor registry has you listed as AB negative. Yes, but I haven't donated in months. We have a critical emergency at Ospedale dell'Angelo. A trauma patient is losing blood faster than we can replace it. You're the only AB negative donor we can reach tonight. Can you come immediately? Elena looked at the unfinished pile of work on her table. 3 more garments, 2 days until delivery. I can't. I'm sorry. He'll die without a transfusion. We need you now. The line went dead. Elena sat there, thread still dangling from her fingers. She thought about hanging up, going back to work, pretending she'd never answered. But the woman's voice had carried something beyond urgency, desperation. She grabbed her coat. The hospital was a 20-minute walk through streets that emptied after dark. Venice transformed at night, its beauty turning skeletal, all shadows and echoes. Elena moved quickly, her breath forming clouds in the October air. She'd donated blood before, dozens of times. It was one of the few things she could give that didn't cost money she didn't have. The emergency entrance blazed with light. A nurse intercepted her before she reached the doors. Elena Rossi? Yes. Come with me, quickly. They moved through corridors that smelled of disinfectant and fear. The nurse's shoes squeaked against linoleum. Elena glimpsed rooms full of beeping machines and exhausted doctors, but they didn't stop until they reached a prep area cordoned off from the main emergency department. Sit here. We need to move fast. Elena rolled up her sleeve. What happened to him? Car accident, the nurse said, but her eyes said it was a lie. The needle went in. Elena watched her blood flow through the tube, dark and steady. She'd done this enough times that the sight didn't bother her anymore. What bothered her was the unusual silence, the way the nurse kept glancing toward the door, the absence of the usual questions about her medical history. How much do you need? As much as you can safely give. That wasn't a normal answer. 15 minutes later, Elena felt the familiar lightheadedness that came with donation. The nurse removed the needle, pressed gauze against her arm, and handed her a juice box that tasted like childhood. You can go. Thank you. Can I see him, the patient? That's not possible. I just gave him my blood. The nurse's expression softened slightly. You saved his life. That's all you need to know. But Elena was already looking past her, through the small window in the door behind the prep area. She caught a glimpse of organized chaos. Doctors in blood-stained scrubs, machines everywhere, and on the gurney, a man's face. Just for a second. Dark hair, sharp features, a jaw that looked carved from stone even in unconsciousness. Then someone pulled a curtain, and he was gone. "Go home," the nurse said. "Please." Elena went. She walked back through Venice's empty streets, feeling hollow and strange. The lightheadedness wasn't just from the blood loss. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. The urgency, the secrecy, the way the nurse had looked at her like she was both savior and liability. By the time she reached her workshop, dawn was threatening the eastern sky. Elena climbed the stairs to the apartment above, moving quietly so she wouldn't wake her father. She checked on him anyway. He was asleep, his chest rising and falling in the fragile rhythm that terrified her every night. The oxygen concentrator hummed beside his bed. She touched his hand. Still warm. Still here. In her own room, barely large enough for a mattress and a dresser, Elena collapsed onto the bed without undressing. Sleep came fast and heavy. She woke to pounding, not knocking, pounding, the kind that meant either police or emergency. Elena stumbled to the door, still half asleep, and opened it without thinking. A man stood in her doorway. Tall, expensive suit, eyes like winter. Behind him, two others, built like walls. "Elena Rossi?" "Who's asking?" "You donated blood last night at Ospedale dell'Angelo." It wasn't a question. Elena's hand tightened on the doorframe. "So?" That was a mistake. Fear spiked through her confusion. "I don't understand. The man you helped. His name is Adrian Valente. And now people know yours." The name meant nothing to her. "I don't know who that is." "You will. May we come in?" "No." The man's expression didn't change. "Miss Rossi, I'm Luca Santoro, head of security for Mr. Valente. The fact that I'm here before his enemies is the only reason you're still alive. We need to talk. Now." Elena started to close the door. Luca's hand caught it. "They leaked the donor registry," he said quietly. "Your name, your address, your father's medical records, everything. We have maybe an hour before they arrive." "Before who arrives?" "The people who tried to kill Adrian Valente last night. The people who will kill anyone who helped him survive." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. "This is insane. I just donated blood. I didn't—" "Elena?" Her father's voice, weak and confused, came from the bedroom. "What's happening?" She looked back toward his room, then at Luca Santoro's cold, certain face. "Please," Luca said, "let us help you." 20 minutes later, Elena sat in her own workshop, surrounded by strangers while her entire life fell apart. Luca Santoro moved through her space like he owned it, checking windows, making calls in rapid Italian that she couldn't quite follow. The two men with him had taken positions by the doors. They wore their guns openly now, no pretense. "Explain this to me again," Elena said. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "Slowly." Luca stopped pacing. "Adrian Valente was ambushed last night. 2 bullets. Significant blood loss. His people brought him to the hospital using a false identity, but someone found out. They couldn't kill him in the hospital, so they corrupted the donor registry and leaked your information instead. Why? To send a message, to make helping him cost something." Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her work table. "I don't know anything about his business. I don't know him. I just gave him your blood, which in his world creates a debt, and in their world makes you a target. That's medieval. That's Venice." One of Luca's men spoke into his phone, then looked up sharply. "Movement on the street. 2 vehicles. Non-local plates." "How long?" 3 minutes. Luca turned to Elena. "We need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere without my father. We have a medical team standing by. He'll be safer than he is here." Elena stood up. "You expect me to trust you? I don't even know who you people are." "You don't have to trust us. You just have to survive the next 3 minutes." A crash came from downstairs, glass breaking. Someone had just forced the workshop's front entrance. Luca moved. His hand went to his gun, his body shifted between Elena and the door, and suddenly the cold professional demeanor cracked enough to show something underneath. Not fear. Calculation. Back room, he said. Now. Elena didn't move. My father, Marco, Luca snapped at one of his men. Get her father. Medical equipment too. 30 seconds. Marco disappeared into the apartment's bedroom. Elena heard her father's confused protest, then Marco's calm professional voice explaining that they needed to move him for his safety. The footsteps on the stairs were getting closer. Elena, Luca's voice cut through her paralysis. They will hurt your father to make you talk. They will burn this building to erase evidence. You can hate me later, but right now, you need to run. She looked at her workshop, years of work, carefully built relationships with clients, the fragile life she'd constructed from nothing. All of it about to disappear because she'd answered her phone at midnight. I need my father's medication, the bottles on his nightstand. Marco's getting them. Move. They went through the back room, out a window Elena had never opened, onto a fire escape she'd forgotten existed. Marco came through behind them, carrying her father like he weighed nothing. Her father's oxygen tank was strapped to Marco's back. The old man's eyes were wide with confusion and fear. Elena, what's... It's okay, Papa. I'm here. It wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. They descended into an alley that smelled like garbage and canal water. A black Mercedes waited with its engine running. Luca pulled the door open. In. Behind them, Elena heard shouts. Breaking furniture, her workshop being destroyed by strangers looking for her. She got in the car. The Mercedes moved through Venice's narrow streets with impossible speed. Elena sat in the back seat with her father, who had started coughing, the bad kind that meant his lungs were filling with fluid. She helped him with his inhaler while Marco, driving, navigated turns that should have been impossible for a vehicle this size. Where are we going? Elena asked. Somewhere safe, Luca said from the passenger seat. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. They crossed a bridge, turned down a street Elena didn't recognize, and pulled into an underground garage. The door closed behind them with mechanical finality. Luca opened her door. Out. Quickly. They were in some kind of private parking structure. Expensive cars lined the walls. Security cameras watched from every angle. Marco carried her father toward an elevator while Luca guided Elena with a hand on her elbow that was somehow both gentle and unyielding. The elevator went up. Elena counted floors. 8, 9, 10. Finally, it stopped. The doors opened onto an apartment that made Elena's entire workshop look like a closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Grand Canal. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was white and chrome and glass, the kind of space that existed in a completely different Venice from the one Elena knew. This way, Luca said. They moved through rooms that felt more like galleries than living spaces. Marco took her father into what looked like a fully equipped medical suite, oxygen concentrator, monitors, a proper hospital bed. What is this place? Elena asked. Safe house, one of several. For who? For people Adrian Valente wants to keep alive. A door opened at the far end of the apartment. A man emerged, walking with careful precision that suggested recent injury. Even from across the room, Elena recognized him. The face she'd glimpsed through the hospital window. Sharp features, dark hair, eyes that assessed everything in a single sweep. Adrian Valente. He was taller than she'd expected. The expensive suit couldn't quite hide the bandages underneath. He moved like someone used to command, but the pallor of his skin and the tightness around his eyes told her the bullets had cost him. He stopped a few feet away from her. Miss Rossi, thank you for your blood. His voice was rough, like he'd been screaming or dying. Elena found her own voice somewhere beneath the shock. You're welcome. Now explain why people are trying to kill me because of it. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. People probably didn't talk to Adrian Valente like that. Fair question. Luca, give us the room. Sir, leave us. Luca hesitated, then nodded. Marco followed him out. Elena heard doors close. Suddenly, she was alone with the man whose blood now ran mixed with hers. Adrian moved to the windows, looking out at Venice. How much do you know about what I do? Nothing. Until an hour ago, I didn't know you existed. Good. That means you're not complicit in anything. He turned back to face her. I own businesses. Import-export, mostly. The kind that exist in spaces the law doesn't quite reach. You're a criminal. I prefer to think of myself as a businessman who operates in gray areas. But yes, the people who shot me last night disagree with some of my recent business decisions. Elena's exhaustion was turning into anger. And this justifies destroying my life? No, nothing justifies what happened to you, but understanding it might help you survive it. Then help me understand. Adrian was quiet for a moment. He looked tired, not just physically, something deeper. I've been investigating something, a network that uses hospitals, donor registries, medical supply chains. They're trafficking blood, not just stealing it, farming it, using vulnerable people as livestock. Elena felt cold. That's impossible. I have documentation, names, routes, buyers. I was getting close to proof solid enough to expose them when they decided to eliminate me. They failed, but they can't let me live long enough to use what I know. What does this have to do with me? You saved my life. In their eyes, that makes you my ally. They leaked your information as a warning to anyone else who might help me. And they'll come for you to find out what I told you, what you know, whether I shared any evidence with you. But I don't know anything. They won't believe that until they've made sure. Thoroughly. Elena sat down before her legs gave out. This isn't real. This can't be real. Adrian moved closer. Not threatening, but not exactly comforting either. I'm sorry. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the right thing, but I can protect you, both you and your father. Why would you? Because I owe you a debt, and because what they're doing... He stopped, and for the first time she saw something raw in his expression. I've done things I'm not proud of, broken laws, hurt people who deserved it, and some who didn't. But what they're doing is different. They're turning human beings into commodities, using the sick and desperate as resources to extract and sell. Elena thought about her father, about every desperate choice she'd made to keep him alive, about how many times she'd felt like the world saw them as problems to be managed rather than people to be helped. How long have you known about this? 6 months. I started noticing irregularities in shipments, medical supplies that didn't match manifests, blood products moving through channels that didn't make sense. I started digging. The deeper I went, the worse it got. And you couldn't go to the police? Adrian's laugh was bitter. The police are part of it. Not all of them, but enough. The whole system is infected. Then what's your plan? Hide forever? No, expose them. I have most of the puzzle pieces. I just need the final connections. Proof solid enough that they can't bury it. Elena stood up. Her legs felt steadier now. Anger did that sometimes. And you expect me to help you? I expect you to survive. Whether you help me is your choice. Some choice. Help the criminal take down other criminals, or wait for them to kill me anyway. Yes. At least he was honest. Elena walked to the windows. Venice spread out below her, beautiful and corrupt and ancient. How many secrets did this city hold? How many crimes had these canals witnessed over the centuries? My father needs constant medical care. He can't be moved around like luggage. The room we've set him up in has everything he needs. Better equipment than most hospitals. A private nurse if necessary. How long? Days, maybe a week. It depends on how quickly I can finish this. Elena turned back to face him. And after? When this is over, if we survive? You go back to your life, new identity if you want it, financial compensation for your trouble. Whatever you need to rebuild. You make it sound simple. It won't be, but I'll keep you alive through it. That's a promise. Elena studied him. Adrian Valente stood there, bleeding through his expensive suit, talking about trafficking networks and criminal empires like some people discuss the weather. He was either insane or telling the truth. Maybe both. I want to see my father, she said. Of course. The medical room was quiet except for monitoring equipment. Her father lay in the hospital bed looking smaller and older than Elena remembered. The private nurse, a competent-looking woman in her 50s, checked his vitals while he slept. How is he? Elena whispered. The nurse smiled. Stable. His oxygen levels are better here than they were at home. The equipment is top quality. Elena sat in the chair beside the bed and took her father's hand. It felt papery and thin. When had he gotten so fragile? "I'm sorry, Papa," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry." She didn't know if she was apologizing for the current situation or for all the years of struggle, for every time she'd worked herself to exhaustion trying to keep them both afloat, for the fact that saving a stranger's life had put them both in danger. Her father's eyes opened, confused at first, then focusing on her face. "Elena? I'm here. Where are we?" "Somewhere safe. Rest now." "You look tired." She almost laughed. "I am tired, Papa." "Then sleep. I'm not going anywhere." If only it were that simple. Luca found her an hour later in the apartment's kitchen, drinking coffee and staring at nothing. "Mr. Valente would like to brief you," he said. "On what?" "What we know, what we need, what happens next." Elena followed him to what looked like an office, all dark wood and leather, the kind of room where important decisions got made. Adrian sat behind a massive desk covered in papers, photographs, and maps. He looked up when she entered. "Close the door." She did. Adrian stood and spread the papers across the desk. "These are the pieces I have. Shipping manifests showing medical supplies moving through my import business without proper documentation. Blood bank records from 4 different hospitals showing inventory discrepancies. Coded messages intercepted from encrypted channels." Elena looked at the spread. It looked like chaos. "And this proves what? Separately? Nothing. Together? It proves someone is moving blood products outside legal channels, using legitimate medical infrastructure as cover. But I need the operational center, the place where they coordinate everything, the hub." "And you think you can find it?" "I know I can find it. I just need time and access to one more piece of information." "Which is?" Adrian pointed to a photograph. It showed a lavish party, beautiful people in beautiful clothes, drinks and dancing and wealth on display. This is the annual charity gala for the Fondazione Medica Veneziana. It happens in 4 days. The foundation supposedly raises money for hospital improvements and medical research. Supposedly? I believe it's a front. The perfect front, actually. They raise millions in donations, skim most of it for their blood trafficking operation, and use the public-facing charity work as cover. The gala is when they do their real business, in private rooms, away from the cameras and speeches. Elena studied the photograph. She recognized some of the faces from gossip magazines and society pages. Wealth and power concentrated in one room. "You want to get inside?" "I have an invitation. I've attended before as part of maintaining my legitimate business cover, but this year they know I'm hunting them. They'll be watching for me. So don't go." "If I don't go, I lose my chance to access their records. The foundation's offices are in the same building where they hold the gala. During the event, security is focused on the party floors. The offices above are vulnerable." "This sounds like a terrible plan." "It's the only plan, and I need help." Elena understood. "You need me." "You're not on their radar yet." "Not really. They leaked your name as collateral damage, but they don't know who you are beyond donor who helped Adrian Valente. You could attend as staff, caterer, server, whatever makes sense. I'm a seamstress, not a spy." "You're a seamstress who works for wealthy clients. You know how to move in these circles without being noticed. That's exactly what I need." Elena laughed, and it sounded slightly hysterical even to her. "This is insane." "Yes. People could die. People are already dying. Every day this operation continues. Vulnerable people are being exploited. Children, the elderly, the desperate. They're treating human beings like renewable resources." "And you care about this? Why?" "What's in it for you?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "My sister," he finally said, 5 years ago. She needed a kidney transplant, got on every waiting list, did everything right. While we waited, someone approached us. Off-the-books organ donation, they said. Clean, safe, no waiting. It would cost, but they could save her life. He stopped. Elena waited. We paid. The surgery happened. She died anyway, infection, complications. We found out later the kidney came from a trafficked victim, some poor desperate person who sold it for nothing and got butchered in a back alley clinic. My money funded that. My desperation enabled it. And my sister died because the whole system was rotten from the inside out. Elena saw the truth in his face. Real pain, old and deep. I'm sorry, she said. Sorry doesn't fix anything, but destroying the people who profit from misery, that's something. Revenge. Justice. There's a difference. Is there? Adrian met her eyes. I'd like to think so. They stood there in the office while Venice moved outside the windows, oblivious to the war being planned in its shadows. If I do this, Elena said slowly, if I help you, I need guarantees. Name them. My father stays safe, no matter what happens to me. Done. And when this is over, I want out. Clean break, new life if we need it. You have my word. The word of a criminal. The word of a man who pays his debts. Elena thought about her workshop, destroyed now. Her careful life, shattered. She thought about her father in the other room, breathing easier than he had in months because Adrian Valente's money bought better equipment than she ever could. She thought about the people Adrian described, the desperate ones, the vulnerable ones, the ones the world had already forgotten. When do we start? She asked. Adrian smiled. It transformed his face into something almost warm. Now. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Luca drilled Elena on the gala's layout, security protocols, escape routes. A woman named Sophia, who claimed to be a logistics specialist, taught her how to blend into serving staff, how to move through wealthy spaces without attracting attention, how to read a room for threats. You're already good at this, Sophia said during one session. Seamstresses learn to be invisible around rich people. You just need to weaponize it. Elena learned the foundation's public faces, the board members, the major donors, the politicians who showed up for photo opportunities. She learned which ones were likely involved in the trafficking network and which were just useful idiots. Adrian worked separately, coordinating with contacts Elena didn't meet, following leads she didn't understand. Sometimes she heard him on the phone speaking in languages she didn't recognize. Sometimes he disappeared for hours and came back looking exhausted. He's pushing too hard, Luca said one evening. Those bullets did real damage. He needs rest. He won't rest, Elena said. Not until this is finished. No, he won't. On the third night, Elena couldn't sleep. She found Adrian in the office, surrounded by papers as usual, his face lit by laptop screens. You should rest, she said from the doorway. So should you. I asked first. He looked up and she saw the exhaustion etched into his features. Can't sleep, keep running scenarios, looking for the angle I missed. Elena came into the room and sat across from him. What if there isn't one? What if this plan just works? Nothing just works. There's always something. You're a pessimist. I'm a realist. In my business, pessimists live longer. Elena looked at the papers spread between them. Can I ask you something? Yes? After your sister died, why didn't you go to the police then? Why start this now? Adrian leaned back in his chair. I tried. Filed reports, gave them everything I knew. It went nowhere. The officers I spoke to were sympathetic but useless. The investigation died quietly. That's when I understood how deep the corruption went. And that's when you became a criminal? I was already a criminal, just a small-time one. But I had connections, resources, skills. I decided to use them. Started building my own network, gathering power. The kind of power that might actually make a difference. Did it? I'm about to find out. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, Venice was dark and quiet. I'm afraid, Elena admitted. Not of dying. I've been dancing with poverty and desperation for years. I'm used to fear, but I'm afraid of failing, of getting my father killed, of making all of this worse. Adrian nodded. Good. Good? Fear keeps you sharp. People who aren't afraid make stupid mistakes. Fear will keep you alive. Is that supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be true. Elena stood to leave, then stopped. Adrian? Yes? Thank you. For the medical equipment, the nurse, everything for my father. Whatever else you are, you kept that promise. I always keep my promises, Elena. That's how you survive in my world. Your word is your only real currency. She left him there, surrounded by evidence and plans, fighting a war most people didn't know existed. The morning of the gala, Elena woke to find her father sitting up in bed, looking more alert than he had in weeks. "You're going out tonight," he said. Not a question. "Yes." "Is it dangerous?" She couldn't lie to him. "Yes." He reached for her hand. "Your mother would be proud of you. Whatever this is, whatever you're fighting, she'd be proud that you chose to fight instead of hide." Elena's mother had died when she was 12. Cancer, the slow kind that ate away at everything until nothing remained. She barely remembered her mother's face anymore, but she remembered her voice saying, "Stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves." "I hope so, Papa." "I know so. You're the bravest person I know." "I'm terrified." "That's what makes it brave." That evening, Elena dressed in the serving staff uniform Sophia had procured. Black pants, white shirt, minimal jewelry. She looked like every other invisible worker who kept Venice's wealthy world running smoothly. Luca drove her to the gala venue, a restored palazzo on the Grand Canal that dripped with Renaissance grandeur. Even from the service entrance, she could hear the music, see the lights. "You remember the plan?" Luca asked. "Yes." "Adrian will enter through the front as a guest. You go through the service entrance, blend with the staff, work your way to the upper floors when the party reaches its peak. The offices should be empty. You're looking for a safe, black, medium-sized, probably behind a painting or bookshelf. The foundation's real records will be there. And if I'm caught, don't be caught. That's not a plan. It's the only plan you need. Don't get caught." Elena got out of the car. The service entrance was busy with caterers and staff moving in organized chaos. She slipped into the stream of workers and let it carry her inside. The palazzo was even more beautiful from within. Frescoed ceilings, marble floors, chandeliers that probably cost more than her entire building. Guests in evening wear moved through spaces that looked like they belonged in fairy tales. Elena found her assigned station, a coat check room on the second floor. Perfect. It gave her access to the upper levels without raising suspicion. The gala unfolded in waves of excess. Champagne flowed, orchestras played, beautiful people made beautiful conversation about nothing. Elena checked coats, smiled politely, and watched for her moment. At 10:30, she saw Adrian arrive. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He looked completely at home in his tuxedo, completely comfortable among people who would try to kill him if they knew what he was really doing there. Their eyes met across the room for just a second. He gave the smallest nod. It was time. Elena left her station during a shift change, slipping up a servant's staircase to the third floor. The offices up here were dark and quiet, separated from the party below by more than just floors. She found the foundation director's office exactly where Luca said it would be. The door was locked, but Sophia had taught her basic lock-picking. Elena's seamstress fingers made short work of it. Inside, the office was pristine. Expensive desk, expensive art, expensive everything. Elena moved to the bookshelf Luca had mentioned. Behind a medical textbook, she found the safe's outline. The combination Luca had given her worked on the third try. The safe clicked open. Inside were files, dozens of them. Elena pulled them out with shaking hands, photographing each page with the camera Sophia had given her. Names, dates, transactions, blood type charts that listed people like inventory, bank accounts in countries that didn't ask questions. It was all there. Everything Adrian needed. "Find what you're looking for?" Elena spun around. A man stood in the doorway. Older, distinguished, wearing a tuxedo and a smile that made her skin crawl. I was just... You were just stealing. From a charity foundation, no less. That's low, even for one of Adrian Valente's people. Elena's mind raced. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please, we've been watching you since you arrived. Did you really think we wouldn't notice an unknown seamstress suddenly working our gala?" The man stepped into the room. Behind him, 2 security guards appeared. "Where's Valente?" the man asked. Don't lie. It wastes both our time. He sent you to find evidence. You found it. Now you're going to tell me where he is, or things will become very unpleasant for your father." Elena's blood turned to ice. You don't know where my father is. Ospedale dell'Angelo, room 412. Such excellent care he's receiving. Would be a shame if his oxygen failed, if his medication got mixed up. Accidents happen in hospitals. He was bluffing. He had to be bluffing, but Elena couldn't risk it. He's downstairs, she said. At the party. Smart girl, take her. The security guards moved forward, Elena back toward the window, her mind scrambling for options. The window exploded inward. Adrian came through it in a shower of glass, rolling to his feet with a gun already in his hand. The guards went for their weapons. Adrian fired twice. Both men dropped. The older man dove for the desk. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides and hit him hard enough to crack bone. The man collapsed. You were supposed to wait, Adrian said to Elena. They knew I was here. They threatened my father. Your father is fine. Luca moved him 2 hours ago. New location, higher security. They were bluffing. Elena felt her knees give out. Adrian caught her. Did you get the files? He asked. Yes. Photographed everything. Good. Then we leave. Now. Lot. They went back through the window onto a narrow ledge that ran along the palazzo's exterior. Below, the canal waited, dark and cold. Above, stars tried to break through Venice's light pollution. This is insane, Elena said. Yes. Adrian led her along the ledge to a drainage pipe. Can you climb? Do I have a choice? No. They climbed down. Elena's hands were shaking so hard she almost fell twice. Adrian stayed below her, guiding her feet to hold she couldn't see. When they reached the water level, a boat waited. Luca at the helm. They dropped into it. Luca gunned the engine before they'd even sat down. The boat shot forward, racing through Venice's canals like something out of a dream or nightmare. Behind them, alarm started screaming. Did we get it? Luca shouted over the engine. We got it, Adrian shouted back. Elena sat in the bottom of the boat, soaking wet, shaking with adrenaline, holding a camera full of evidence that might actually change something. She started laughing. Couldn't help it. The whole thing was so insane, so impossible, and yet they'd done it. Adrian looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. We did it, she said. We did, Adrian agreed. The boat raced on through Venice's ancient waterways, carrying them toward whatever came next. The safe house they reached an hour later was nothing like the apartment overlooking the Grand Canal. This one sat in Mestre, on the mainland, buried in an industrial district where nobody asked questions. The building looked abandoned from the outside. Cracked windows, faded paint, weeds growing through the pavement. Inside was different. Clean, functional, equipped with technology that probably cost more than Elena's entire neighborhood. Luca disappeared into a back room with the camera, while Adrian peeled off his ruined tuxedo jacket. Blood was seeping through his shirt again. The climb down the palazzo had reopened something. You need a doctor, Elena said. I need to see those files first. You're bleeding. I'm aware. Elena grabbed a first aid kit from the bathroom and threw it at him. He caught it one-handed without looking up from the laptop Luca had given him. Stubborn doesn't make you tough, she said. It makes you stupid. Adrian's eyes flicked to her face, and something that might have been amusement crossed his features. You sound like my sister. Your sister was probably smarter than both of us combined. She was. Elena sat down across from him. The adrenaline was wearing off now, replaced by exhaustion that felt like gravity. What happens when they realize we have their records? They'll panic, move assets, destroy evidence, disappear anyone who knows too much. Comforting. You asked. Luca emerged from the back room carrying printouts. We've got names. Senator Grimaldi, Dr. Castellano from Ospedale San Marco, Vittorio Marchesi from the Regional Health Board. Wait, Elena interrupted. Did you say Castellano? Both men looked at her. Dr. Castellano, he runs the foundation? Yes, Adrian said slowly. Why? Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Signora Castellano. She's one of my clients. I've been sewing her dresses for 2 years. The room went quiet. What kind of dresses? Adrian asked. Evening wear, mostly. She attends a lot of charity functions. She's always very specific about what she wants. She brings me fabric sometimes, expensive stuff. Says her husband buys it for her. Adrian and Luca exchanged looks. The fabric, Adrian said. Where does it come from? I don't know. I assume boutiques, high-end suppliers. Why? Luca was already typing on his laptop. Dr. Castellano's wife, Bianca. Here. Charitable donations in her name, board positions on 3 medical foundations, frequent travel to Switzerland and the Balkans. The Balkans, Adrian said. That's where the trafficking routes run strongest. Elena's hands were shaking again. I've been making dresses for someone involved in this? You didn't know, Adrian said. That doesn't make it better. I took her money. I smiled and made small talk while she told me about her charity work. Her charity work. Elena, how many people did I help her look good for? How many donors did she charm while wearing clothes I made? Adrian came around the table and crouched in front of her chair. Listen to me. You were doing your job. You're not responsible for what they did. I feel responsible. I know, but that feeling doesn't change the facts. They used you like they used everyone else. The difference is now you can do something about it. Elena looked at him. His face was pale from blood loss, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion, but his voice was steady, certain. What can I do? Tell me about Signora Castellano. Everything. Her patterns, her habits, her routines. Anything that might help us. So Elena talked. She described how Bianca Castellano came to the workshop every 6 weeks like clockwork, always in the afternoon, always with precise sketches of what she wanted. How she paid in cash, never cards. How she sometimes brought her own fabric, but other times requested Elena source specific materials, silks from particular regions, velvets from certain suppliers. She keeps a calendar, Elena said, remembering. A physical one, the expensive leather-bound kind. I saw it once when she left her bag open. It was full of codes, numbers and abbreviations I didn't understand. Adrian leaned forward. What kind of codes? Letters and numbers, like BPOS 45 or AB NEG 12. I thought they were fashion references, sample numbers or something. Blood types, Luca said quietly. B positive, AB negative. The numbers might be quantities. Elena felt sick. She was tracking inventory, right there in front of me. Does she have an appointment scheduled? She always books the last Wednesday of the month. That's, Elena calculated, 2 days from now. Adrian stood up. Then we have 2 days to prepare. Prepare for what? To get that calendar. The plan Adrian outlined made Elena's previous fears look reasonable. Bianca Castellano would come to the workshop, except the workshop didn't exist anymore. Her building had been raided, ransacked, marked as a crime scene, but Bianca didn't know that yet. Or if she did, she might come anyway, looking for Elena. We set up in your workshop, Adrian explained. Make it look operational. You're there, business as usual. When she arrives, you keep her talking while Luca searches her belongings. And if she realizes something's wrong, you're a seamstress who survived a break-in. You're shaken, but determined to keep working. She'll believe it because she wants to believe it. People like Bianca Castellano don't imagine the help might be working against them. Elena hated how much sense it made. What about my father? He stays here. Medical team, security, everything he needs. He's safer here than anywhere else in Venice. He'll be scared. He won't understand. Then explain it to him. Tell him the truth. Elena found her father in the safe house's medical room. He was awake, watching Italian news on a small television. The nurse sat nearby, reading. Papa, Elena said softly. He turned and his face lit up. Elena, you're safe. I'm safe. How are you feeling? Better than I have in months. This equipment, he gestured at the oxygen system, the monitors. It's like a real hospital. Where are we? Elena sat beside his bed. Somewhere the bad people can't find us. And when can we go home? Soon, I hope, but Papa, I need to do something first, something dangerous. His expression changed. Elena. These people, the ones who are after us, they're hurting others, using sick people, desperate people. I have a chance to stop them, but it means I have to take a risk. Her father was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for her hand. Your mother would tell you to be careful. And what would you tell me? I'd tell you that some things are worth the risk, and I'd tell you I'm proud of you, even though I'm terrified. Elena kissed his forehead. I'll be careful, I promise. That's all I ask. But Elena knew it was a promise she might not be able to keep. The next 2 days were preparation. Luca's team restored Elena's workshop to something resembling its previous state. They couldn't fix everything, the broken furniture, the shattered glass, but they made it look like she'd been cleaning up, trying to rebuild. They planted listening devices in the ceiling, cameras in the light fixtures, and gave Elena an earpiece so she could hear Luca's instructions. Adrian wanted to be there, but Luca shut that down immediately. You're a wanted man, Luca said. The moment Bianca sees you, she'll know it's a trap. I'll stay hidden. No. You're wounded, you're exhausted, and you're too personally invested. You stay here and coordinate from a distance. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but Elena interrupted. He's right. I can do this. Adrian turned to her. If anything feels wrong, I run. I know. I'm serious, Elena. These people have already shown what they're capable of. Don't take chances. Says the man who jumped through a window at a gala. Despite everything, Adrian smiled. Fair point. Wednesday arrived too fast. Elena stood in her workshop wearing clothes she'd carefully selected to look worn and tired, which wasn't hard because she was worn and tired. The space around her felt strange, like a stage set of her old life. Nothing quite real. Luca's voice came through her earpiece. We're in position. 3 men outside, 2 in the building across the street. You see anything wrong? You say the word scissors, and we move in. Understood. And Elena? Breathe. You're just having a normal day. Normal. Right. At 2:15, exactly on schedule, Bianca Castellano knocked on the workshop door. Elena opened it with a smile she'd practiced in the mirror. Signora Castellano, please, come in. Bianca swept inside, all elegance and expensive perfume. She was in her 50s, beautiful in that preserved way that came from money and maintenance. Her eyes scanned the workshop, taking in the subtle signs of damage. Elena, dear, I heard there was some trouble here. A break-in, Elena said, keeping her voice steady. Nothing too serious, some damage, but I'm managing. How terrible. Did they take anything? Just some fabric, equipment. They made a mess more than anything. Bianca's eyes were sharp, despite her sympathetic expression. And you're sure you're all right to work? We could reschedule. No, please. I need the work. I want the work. It helps me feel normal again. That seemed to satisfy her. Bianca settled into her usual chair and opened her bag. The expensive leather one Elena remembered. The calendar was visible, right on top. I have something special in mind for the opera gala, Bianca said, pulling out a sketch. Something bold. Red, I think. What do you have in crimson silk? Elena moved to her fabric storage, positioning herself so Bianca had to turn her back to her bag. Through the earpiece, she heard Luca say, Ready. I have a few options, Elena said, pulling bolts of fabric. This one is from Milan. Behind Bianca, the workshop door opened silently. One of Luca's men slipped inside, moving like smoke. Elena kept talking, kept showing fabric, kept Bianca's attention forward while the man approached her bag. And this one has a slight shimmer in certain light. The man's hand reached into the bag, found the calendar, started to lift it out. Bianca's phone rang. She turned to reach for her bag. The man had already vanished, calendar in hand, but Bianca's eyes caught something, maybe a shadow, maybe the bag's position slightly changed. Excuse me a moment, she said, answering the phone. Yes? What? When? Elena couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Bianca's expression change. The polite society mask cracked, showing something colder underneath. I see. No, don't move anything. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She ended the call and stood abruptly. I'm sorry, Elena. Something's come up. We'll have to reschedule. Of course. Is everything... Family emergency. You understand. Bianca grabbed her bag and headed for the door. She moved fast, all pretense of leisure gone. Elena watched her leave, then heard Luca's voice in her ear. She's spooked. Someone tipped her off about something. Team 2, follow her. Elena, stay put. Elena sat down in her workroom, hands shaking. Through the window, she watched Bianca climb into a waiting car that definitely hadn't been there when she arrived. "We got the calendar," Luca said. "Good work. Stay there for another hour, then we'll extract you." The hour passed like years. Elena tried to work on actual sewing, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. She kept replaying the moment Bianca's expression changed, that flash of something predatory beneath the society woman veneer. When Luca finally arrived to take her back to the safe house, Elena was exhausted. "Did I do okay?" she asked in the car. "You did perfectly." She suspected nothing until that phone call, and that wasn't about you. Then what was it about? We're about to find out. Back at the safe house, Adrian and two people Elena didn't recognize were crowded around a table covered in photographs. The calendar lay in the center, open to a page covered in codes. Adrian looked up when she entered. "Elena, you're all right?" "I'm fine. What did we get?" "Everything," one of the strangers said. She was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers. "I'm Chiara. I do forensic accounting. This calendar is a complete operational record." She pointed to entries. "See these? Blood type codes paired with dates and locations. This is a schedule. Where they're collecting, where they're processing, where they're shipping. It's all here." "Can we use it?" Elena asked. "In court? Maybe. As a map to their operation? Definitely. Look at this entry from 3 weeks ago. AB-23, processed at San Marco, shipped to Zurich. That matches bank transfers we found in the Gala files. Same date, same amount." Adrian was studying a particular page. "This entry from yesterday, OPOS 40. Emergency collection at Del Angelo. That's the hospital where I donated," Elena finished. "They were tracking you, your blood type, the transfusion. That's how they found me." "And they're still active," the other stranger said. He was older, gray-haired, wearing glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "I'm Paolo, former journalist. Look at this week's entries. They have 3 collections scheduled, 1 tonight." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Where?" Paolo pointed to an address written in small, precise handwriting. "This hospice in Dorsoduro. The calendar says O-15, that's 15 units, from a hospice." The room went silent. "They're harvesting from dying patients," Chiara said quietly. "Taking blood from people too weak to resist or report it." Elena felt rage building in her chest. "We have to stop them." "We will," Adrian said, "but we need to be smart about it. If we move too fast, they'll scatter. We need to catch them in the act." "So we go to the hospice tonight," Luca said. "Catch them collecting blood they shouldn't have." "Not just us. We need witnesses. Evidence that will stick." Elena looked at Adrian. "You mean the police?" "The right police. Paolo, you still have contacts at the Carabinieri?" "A few. People I trust. They've been looking for a way into this kind of corruption for years." "Call them. Tell them we have something worth seeing." The plan came together quickly. Paolo reached out to his contact, a captain named Ferrara who'd been investigating medical corruption for the better part of a decade. Ferrara was skeptical until Paolo sent him photos of the calendar entries. Then he was interested. They arranged to meet at a cafe 3 blocks from the hospice at 9 that evening. Luca would provide security. Elena would provide testimony about Bianca Castellano. Adrian would stay hidden unless absolutely necessary. His face was too recognizable, his reputation too complicated. "I don't like this," Adrian said when the others had left to prepare. He and Elena were alone in the main room. "Too many variables, too many ways it goes wrong." "Everything we've done has too many variables," Elena pointed out. "We're still here. Luck runs out. So does time. Those people at the hospice, if we don't stop this tonight, I know." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Elena was starting to recognize as frustration. He stopped. Started again. "You've already risked too much. Your home, your safety, your father's health. You don't have to keep doing this." "Yes, I do." "Why?" Elena thought about it. About her mother's voice saying, "Stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves." about all the times she'd felt invisible, disposable, like her life only mattered as long as she was useful to someone with more money. "Because I'm tired," she said finally. "Tired of being scared. Tired of watching powerful people hurt vulnerable ones and knowing nobody will stop them. Tired of surviving instead of living. This," she gestured at the safe house, the evidence, everything they'd built. "This is the first time in my life I've felt like what I do actually matters." Adrian was quiet for a moment. "It matters. You matter. More than you know." Something in his voice made Elena look at him closely. His expression was unguarded for once, showing exhaustion and pain, but also something else, something that made her chest feel tight. "Adrian?" "We should go," he said, the moment breaking. "Luca will be waiting." The hospice sat on a quiet street in Dorsoduro, a converted monastery that had been caring for the dying for over 200 years. It looked peaceful in the evening light, serene, the kind of place people came for dignity in their final days. Elena sat in a cafe across the street with Paolo and Captain Ferrara, watching the hospice entrance. Luca and his team were positioned around the building. Adrian was in a van 2 blocks away, monitoring everything through cameras they'd planted earlier. Ferrara was a compact man in his 50s, with careful eyes and the kind of stillness that came from years of police work. He'd listened to Elena's story without interrupting, taking notes in a small leather book. "And you're certain Signora Castellano is involved?" he asked. "Her calendar tracked blood collections like inventory," Elena said. "She's either directly involved or willfully ignorant, and I don't think she's ignorant." "Neither do I." Ferrara checked his watch. "The collection is scheduled for 9:30. If they're running on time, we should see movement soon." At 9:15, a white van pulled up to the hospice's service entrance. 3 people got out, 2 men in orderly uniforms and a woman in a nurse's outfit. They moved quickly, efficiently, like they'd done this many times before. "That's them," Paolo said quietly. Ferrara made a call. Elena heard him giving orders in rapid Italian, positioning his people. Within minutes, unmarked cars had blocked both ends of the street. More officers moved into position around the building, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. 20 minutes passed. Elena's coffee went cold. Paolo checked his phone compulsively. Ferrara sat perfectly still, watching. At 9:40, the hospice's service door opened. The same 3 people emerged, now carrying 3 large coolers marked with medical supply logos. They moved toward the van. "Now, Ferrara said into his phone. Police swarmed from every direction. The 3 from the hospice froze, trapped between the building and the van. One of the men tried to run. He made it 5 steps before officers tackled him. Ferrara stood. "Wait here." Elena watched him cross the street, badge already out, moving with authority. The officers opened the coolers. Even from across the street, Elena could see the blood bags inside, carefully labeled and packed in ice. Her earpiece crackled. Adrian's voice. "They've got them. Good work." But Elena was watching something else. A car, parked half a block down, engine running. As the arrest unfolded, the car pulled away slowly, carefully, not drawing attention. "Adrian, there's a car leaving, black sedan, 2 people inside." "I see it. Luca, you tracking?" "On it." Elena watched Luca's motorcycle pull away from the curb, following the sedan at a careful distance. Ferrara came back 15 minutes later. 12 units of blood. Unauthorized collection from 5 patients. The nurse is talking already. She's terrified. Says she's been forced to do this for months. "Forced how?" Paolo asked. "Debt. Her daughter needed surgery they couldn't afford. Someone offered to pay if the nurse would collect extra blood from hospice patients. Just a little, they said. Not enough to hurt anyone. But it kept escalating." Elena felt sick. "They find vulnerable people and exploit them." "Yes, it's an effective model." Ferrara's expression was grim. "We have enough to arrest Dr. Castellano. His wife, too, if the nurse's testimony holds. But the organization behind this, they're more careful. Harder to touch." Elena's earpiece crackled again. Luca's voice tense. "We've got a problem. The sedan just pulled into a warehouse near the port. There are more vehicles here, a lot more." Adrian's voice cut in. What kind of vehicles? Medical transport, at least 6. And people. Armed people. Pull back. Don't engage. Too late. They made me. Then gunfire. Elena stood up so fast she knocked over her coffee. Ferrara grabbed her arm. What's wrong? My people are in trouble. The port, near... She tried to remember the street names Luca had mentioned. Ferrara was already moving, phone to his ear, calling for backup. Elena ran after him toward his car. Paolo followed. They drove through Venice's streets with lights flashing but no siren. Ferrara drove like he knew every turn, every shortcut. In the back seat, Elena listened to chaos through her earpiece. Gunshots, shouting, Luca calling for Adrian to stay back. How many are we facing? Ferrara asked. I don't know, at least a dozen. They're protecting something in that warehouse. Then that's where the operation is, the hub. They reached the port district in 8 minutes. Police cars were already converging from multiple directions. Ferrara parked a block away and turned to Elena. Stay in the car. My friend is in there, and my officers are handling it. Stay in the car. He was gone before she could argue. Paolo looked at her. We should listen to him. I know. They didn't listen. Elena and Paolo moved closer on foot, staying in shadows, watching the warehouse from behind a shipping container. The building was massive, all corrugated metal and broken windows. Police had surrounded it, but nobody was moving in yet. Too dangerous until they knew what they were facing. Elena spotted Luca near a stack of pallets. Blood on his jacket, but apparently mobile. He was talking to Adrian, who'd appeared despite everyone's orders to stay away. The warehouse's main door was open. Light spilled out, illuminating vehicles that were indeed medical transports. Through the opening, Elena caught glimpses of the interior. Equipment, refrigeration units, people in medical gear working frantically to pack things away. Ferrara's voice boomed through a megaphone. This is the Carabinieri. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone fired from inside the warehouse. The bullet pinged off a police car's hood. Officers dove for cover. Ferrara swore and got on his radio. We need tactical, full team. These people are not surrendering. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos. More police arrived. A tactical team set up a perimeter. Negotiators tried to establish communication with whoever was inside. But the people in the warehouse weren't talking. Elena watched it unfold, feeling helpless. This was bigger than anything they'd planned for. This wasn't a simple arrest at a hospice. This was war. She felt someone beside her and turned to find Adrian there, breathing hard, blood seeping through his shirt again. You're hurt. It's old blood, mostly. He looked at the warehouse. We need to end this. The police are handling it. The police are preparing for a siege. That gives the people inside time to destroy evidence. We need to move now. Adrian, you can't. But he was already moving toward where Ferrara stood coordinating with the tactical team. Elena followed. Captain Ferrara. Ferrara turned and his expression hardened when he saw Adrian. Valente, I should arrest you right now. You can arrest me after. Right now I can help. I know that warehouse. I've used it before for my own shipments. I know the layout, the exits, where they'd set up operations. Even if I trusted you, which I don't, I can't let a civilian into an active situation. I'm not asking permission. I'm offering information. There's a service entrance on the north side hidden behind false paneling. It leads directly to the main operations area. Your team goes in loud from the front, someone goes in quiet through the service entrance, and you catch them between two forces before they can destroy everything. Ferrara studied him. And you want to be the someone. I've earned it. You've earned a bullet. Those people have already shot one officer. Then give me a vest, backup, whatever you need, but don't waste time arguing while they destroy evidence in there. The tactical team leader, a woman named Sarah, spoke up. He's right about the timing. Every minute we wait, they're shredding documents and wiping drives. If there's a secondary entrance, there is, Adrian insisted. I can show you exactly where. Ferrara looked between Adrian, Sarah, and the warehouse. If this goes wrong, it goes wrong whether I'm involved or not. At least this way it might go right. 5 minutes later, Elena watched Adrian disappear around the north side of the building with Sarah and 4 tactical officers. Luca wanted to go too, but his shoulder was genuinely injured. He stood beside Elena, both of them helpless to do anything but watch. "He's going to get himself killed," Luca muttered. "Probably. And you care." It wasn't a question. Elena didn't answer. The assault happened fast. The tactical team hit the front entrance with flashbangs and shouted commands. Inside the warehouse, chaos erupted. Through the open door, Elena saw people scattering, equipment being overturned, someone trying to start a fire. Then Adrian and Sarah's team came through the service entrance. They caught the warehouse occupants completely off guard. The people who'd been trying to destroy evidence suddenly found themselves surrounded by armed police coming from 2 directions. Most surrendered immediately. 2 didn't. Elena watched them run deeper into the warehouse toward what looked like an office area in the back. Adrian and one of Sarah's officers pursued. Gunfire echoed in the cavernous space. Then silence. Elena stopped breathing. Ferrara was shouting orders, sending more officers inside. Luca was already running toward the warehouse despite his injury. Elena followed, ignoring everyone who told her to stay back. Inside, the warehouse was exactly what Adrian had said it was, a complete operation. Refrigeration units full of blood bags, medical equipment for processing and testing, filing cabinets, computers, and in the center a desk covered in the kind of documentation that destroyed empires. Sarah's team had secured most of the people who'd been working there. They sat on the floor, hands zip-tied, looking terrified. But Elena was looking for Adrian. She found him in the back office, standing over 2 people who lay on the floor, unconscious but breathing. One was a man in an expensive suit. The other was a woman Elena recognized from society pages. "Vittorio Marchesi," Adrian said when he saw her. "Regional Health Board." And Lucia Santini, hospital administrator. They were burning files. He gestured to a metal trash can full of smoldering papers. Elena could see names, blood types, dates, all turning to ash. Did they destroy everything? Most of it, but not the computers, not the refrigeration logs, and not this. Adrian held up a ledger, the old-fashioned kind, handwritten entries going back years. This is their insurance policy. The complete record of every transaction, every participant, every person they've compromised. They kept it because mutual destruction keeps everyone in line. Now it keeps them all in prison. Ferrara appeared in the doorway. "Valente, I need you to step away from the evidence." Adrian handed him the ledger. "It's all yours, Captain. Everything you need to dismantle this network. And I'll need you to come to the station for questioning. Of course, after I get my people to safety." Ferrara looked like he wanted to argue, but Sarah interrupted. "Captain, you need to see this." They followed her to the refrigeration units. Inside were hundreds of blood bags, meticulously labeled and organized. But it was what else was there that made Elena's stomach turn. Medical files. Dozens of them. Profiles of patients, potential donors, people marked as targets, their blood types, their financial situations, their vulnerabilities all documented like they were products to harvest. "This is monstrous," Ferrara said quietly. One of the files caught Elena's eye. She pulled it out with shaking hands. Her father's name was on it, his blood type, his medical conditions, his address, the hospital where he received treatment, and a note. "Viable donor, regular dialysis candidate, high extraction potential." They'd been planning to use her father. Adrian saw her face and immediately understood. "Elena, they were going to harvest him, like he was a resource. But they didn't, and now they never will." Elena looked around the warehouse at the evidence, the arrested conspirators, the police cataloging everything. How many people did they do this to? "Too many," Ferrara said, "but thanks to you, no more." The arrest continued through the night. As Ferrara's team processed the warehouse's contents, more names emerged. More conspirators got pulled from their beds. More pieces of the network got exposed. Senator Grimaldi was arrested at his mistress's apartment. Dr. Castellano tried to run and made it as far as the train station. Bianca Castellano was picked up at a dinner party, protesting her innocence to anyone who would listen. By dawn, 17 people were in custody. The ledger Adrian found provided evidence linking them all. The computers held financial records. The refrigeration units held blood that shouldn't exist. And the medical files provided victim testimony, people who'd been exploited but never knew it. Elena sat in Captain Ferrara's office, watching the sun rise over Venice. Her father was still at the safe house, unaware of how close he'd come to becoming another victim. Adrian was in an interrogation room somewhere, giving his statement. Luca had finally gone to a hospital to get his shoulder properly treated. Paolo brought her coffee. "You should sleep." "Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see that file, my father's name, what they plan to do." But didn't do, because you stopped them. We stopped them. All of us. Paolo sat down across from her. "I've been covering corruption stories for 20 years. I've seen systems that seemed untouchable finally fall. This is one of those moments. What you and Adrian accomplished, it's going to ripple for years. If the arrests stick, if the evidence holds, it will. Ferrara is careful. He'll build a case that can't be dismissed or buried, and I'll make sure the story gets told properly. Not just the crimes, but the victims, the people who were targeted, the system that allowed this to happen." Elena thought about all the people in those files. How many had been like her father, sick, desperate, invisible to everyone except those who saw them as exploitable. "Make sure people understand," she said. "These weren't just crimes. They were violations. They treated human beings like commodities." "I will. I promise." Ferrara emerged from the interrogation area an hour later. He looked exhausted but satisfied. "Valente's statement corroborates everything we've found. He's been investigating this network for months, gathering evidence, tracking shipments, identifying conspirators. Technically, he broke several laws doing it, but..." Ferrara shrugged. "Under the circumstances, I'm willing to overlook creative evidence gathering." "You're letting him go?" "For now. He'll need to remain available for trial testimony, but I don't see value in arresting a man who just helped us dismantle a trafficking network. His past activities are a separate issue." Adrian appeared behind Ferrara, looking like he might collapse at any moment. "Can I see Elena?" Ferrara nodded. 5 minutes. Then you both need rest." They sat in an empty conference room. Neither spoke for a moment. "Your father's file," Adrian finally said. "I'm sorry. I should have moved faster, done more. You did everything. We did everything. And he's safe. That's what matters. Still nothing. You kept your promise. You protected him. You protected me. And you destroyed the people who would have hurt both of us." Adrian leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. 3 weeks ago, I was just trying to find evidence, expose a network. Now, he opened his eyes. Now I've got a seamstress fighting beside me, a journalist ready to burn down half of Venice's elite, and the Carabinieri treating me like an ally instead of a criminal. I don't know how any of this happened. "I donated blood," Elena said. "That's how it happened. Best decision I never made." They sat together watching morning light fill the room, two people who'd survived something they shouldn't have. Outside, Venice was waking up to a scandal that would consume it for months, but rest didn't come. Elena returned to the safe house expecting to find her father asleep, maybe catch a few hours herself before everything caught up with her body. Instead, she found chaos. The medical room's monitors were screaming. The nurse who'd been watching over her father stood by his bed, hands moving quickly, adjusting equipment while speaking rapidly into a phone. Elena's father lay unconscious, his breathing shallow and labored, even with the oxygen at maximum. What happened? Elena pushed into the room, her exhaustion vanishing in a spike of pure fear. The nurse looked up, her professional calm cracking. "His kidneys! They're failing! I've called for transport to the hospital, but what?" "Miss Rossi, your father needs dialysis immediately. His system is shutting down. The stress of the move, the medications, everything that's happened, it accelerated his decline." Adrian appeared in the doorway behind Elena. "How long does he have?" "Hours, maybe less without intervention." Elena grabbed her father's hand. It was cold. His face had a gray pallor she'd never seen before. Papa, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Elena?" "I'm here." We're getting you help. Tired, he whispered. So tired. I know, but you have to hold on, please. The ambulance arrived 10 minutes later. Elena rode with her father while Adrian followed in a separate car. The morning traffic was light, but every red light felt like an eternity. Elena watched the monitors, watched her father's vital signs weaken with each passing minute. The paramedic working on him was young, competent, but Elena could see the concern in his eyes. We're doing everything we can. Is it enough? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. They reached Ospedale San Marco, the same hospital connected to Dr. Castellano, now under investigation. The emergency staff was expecting them. Her father was rushed through doors Elena couldn't follow. A doctor stopped her in the hallway. You're his daughter? Yes, Elena Rossi. I'm Dr. Ferretti. We're preparing him for emergency dialysis now. His kidney function is critically low. The next few hours will determine... She paused, choosing words carefully. We'll do everything possible. But it might not be enough. Dr. Ferretti's expression softened. I won't lie to you. His condition is very serious. But he's here. We have excellent equipment and he's fighting. That counts for something. Elena sank into a waiting room chair. Adrian sat beside her, saying nothing. What was there to say? That he was sorry? That this wasn't his fault? Except it was, in a way. If Elena had never answered that midnight phone call, if she'd never donated blood to save a stranger, her father would be home right now. Sick, yes, but alive. Safe. This is on me, Adrian said quietly, reading her thoughts. Don't. It's true. I brought this into your life. I made choices. I chose to help. I chose to fight. I chose all of it. Elena looked at him. You don't get to take that away from me by claiming it's your fault. I own my decisions. Even if they cost you everything? Even then. They sat in silence while the hospital moved around them. Doctors rushed past, nurses checked charts, announcements echoed from overhead speakers. The smell of disinfectant was overwhelming. Elena had spent too much time in hospitals over the years. She knew these hallways, these sounds, this particular quality of fluorescent light that made everything look slightly unreal. Luca arrived an hour later, his arm in a proper sling now. Any news? He's in dialysis, Elena said. They're trying to stabilize him. He's strong. He'll make it. Elena wanted to believe that, but her father's hand had been so cold. Paolo showed up next, bringing coffee and pastries that Elena couldn't eat. Then Captain Ferrara, checking on them between coordinating arrests. Even Sarah from the tactical team stopped by, offering quiet support. These people, most of whom Elena had known for less than a week, had become something like family. United by violence and investigation and a shared determination to destroy something rotten. Now they were here, in a hospital waiting room, because one of their own was dying. I need to tell you something, Ferrara said to Adrian, pulling him aside. Elena followed anyway. The investigation is expanding faster than expected. The ledger you found, the computer records, they're connecting to trafficking networks across Europe. Interpol is involved now. We're looking at dozens more arrests. That's good news. It's complicated news. Some of the people we're targeting are very powerful, connected. They're going to fight back, and when they do, you and Miss Rossi will be primary targets for retaliation. We can handle it. Can you? Valente, you're already wounded and exhausted. Ferrara glanced at Elena. She's a civilian who's been through hell. Neither of you is in any shape for another war. Then what do you suggest? Protective custody for both of you, until the trials are finished and the network is fully dismantled. Elena laughed, and it sounded bitter even to her. You want to lock us away while my father dies in a hospital? I want to keep you alive. I'm not going anywhere. My father needs me. Ferrara looked at Adrian. Talk sense into her. She's right. We stay visible, we stay active, we finish this properly. Hiding just delays the inevitable. You're both insane. Probably, Adrian agreed. But we're committed. Dr. Ferretti found them 3 hours later. Her expression was carefully neutral, which Elena had learned meant bad news delivered gently. Your father is stable for now. The dialysis is helping, but his kidney function isn't returning. We're running more tests, but... She paused. Miss Rossi, has anyone discussed transplant options with you? Elena's stomach dropped. Years ago. He's on the waiting list, but his blood type is rare and his age, a B negative. Yes, it's difficult. The waiting list for his demographic is 3 to 5 years typically. He doesn't have 3 to 5 years. No, he doesn't. Which is why I need to ask, do you have any family members who might be compatible donors? It's just us, just me and him. Then you should be tested. A B negative patients can receive from AB negative or O negative donors. If you're compatible, test me now. Elena, Adrian started. Test me now, she repeated to the doctor. Please. They drew her blood in a small examination room. Elena watched the vial fill, thinking about the last time she'd given blood. How that single act of trying to help a stranger had cascaded into everything that followed. Maybe this time would be simpler. Maybe this time, her blood would just save the person she loved most. The compatibility testing would take a few hours. Elena waited in her father's room, watching him sleep. He looked smaller in the hospital bed, diminished. How had she not noticed how frail he'd become? She'd been so focused on working, on keeping them both afloat financially, that she'd missed seeing him slip away piece by piece. I'm sorry, Papa, she whispered. I should have paid more attention. His eyes opened slightly. Elena? I'm here. Where? He looked around, confused. Hospital. Your kidneys failed. They're treating you, but you need a transplant. They're testing me to see if I'm compatible. Her father's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to horror. No. Papa, no. You don't give me your kidney. You have your whole life. My life isn't worth anything if you're not in it. That's not true. You have so much ahead of you. I'm old. I'm sick. You're my father, and I'm getting tested whether you like it or not. He tried to argue more, but exhaustion pulled him back under. Elena sat with his hand in hers until the doctor returned. You're compatible, Ferretti said. Your tissue markers are an excellent match. We could schedule this surgery as early as tomorrow if you're willing. I'm willing. Elena, I need you to understand what this means. Kidney donation is major surgery. There are risks, infection, bleeding, complications from anesthesia. And long-term, you'll be living with one kidney. Your lifestyle will need to change. Your own health will be more vulnerable. I understand. You should take time to think about it. Talk to family, consider all the implications. Doctor, with respect, I've already decided. My father is dying. I can save him. Everything else is just details. Ferretti studied her for a long moment. All right, I'll start the surgical preparation. We'll operate tomorrow morning, first thing. Adrian was waiting when Elena emerged from the consultation. You're really doing this? Of course I'm doing this. You could die on that table. I could die crossing the street. I could die in my sleep. I could die because someone decides I know too much about their criminal network. Elena was too tired for this argument. I'm saving my father. That's not negotiable. I'm not trying to stop you. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, that gesture of frustration she knew now. I want you to be safe, both of you. Then help me make sure the surgery happens without anyone interfering. What do you mean? Elena lowered her voice. This hospital was part of the network. Dr. Castellano worked here. How many other staff members were involved? How many are still walking around, worried about being exposed? Understanding dawned on Adrian's face. You think someone might try to sabotage the surgery. I think we've made a lot of powerful people very angry, and I think a surgical complication would be a convenient way to silence a witness. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. Luca can arrange security. We'll vet everyone involved in the procedure. No one gets near you or your father without clearance. Can you do that without alerting Ferrara? He'll try to delay everything for more official protection. I'll handle it. You focus on being ready for surgery. The rest of the day passed in a blur of pre-surgical consultations, consent forms, and blood work. Luca brought in a security team that vetted every staff member who would be involved in the operation. They found 2 nurses who had indirect connections to people arrested in the warehouse raid. Both were reassigned to different floors without explanation. Paolo kept Elena updated on the investigation's progress. More arrests every hour, more evidence uncovered. The trafficking network was collapsing like a house built on sand. But the collapse was chaotic, dangerous. People were panicking, making desperate moves. There's been a development, Paolo said that evening. Bianca Castellano wants to make a deal. What kind of deal? Full testimony against her husband and the others in exchange for reduced charges. She's claiming she was coerced, forced into participation by threats against her safety. Elena laughed without humor. That's a lie. I saw her calendar. She was tracking blood collections like a businesswoman tracking inventory. I know, but her lawyers are good, and she has money. Ferrara thinks she might get a lighter sentence regardless of what we believe. That's not justice. No, it's the legal system. Sometimes they're the same thing, sometimes they're not. Elena thought about all the people in those medical files, all the victims who'd been harvested, exploited, treated like resources. Would they care that Bianca Castellano spent 5 years in prison instead of 20 if it meant the whole network got exposed? Tell Ferrara to take the deal if it helps convict the others, Elena said. I want the entire operation destroyed, not just one piece of it. Even if it means Bianca walks away relatively unscathed. Even then, this isn't about revenge. It's about making sure this never happens again. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in a hospital bed in a private room, courtesy of Adrian's money and Luca's security concerns, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow morning, surgeons would cut her open and remove an organ. Her father would receive it and hopefully live. Simple. Terrifying. Necessary. A soft knock on her door. Adrian entered, looking as exhausted as she felt. You should be resting, he said. So should you. Can't. Too much to think about. Join the club. Adrian sat in the chair beside her bed. For a while, neither spoke. The hospital around them had quieted to its nighttime rhythms. Occasional footsteps, distant beeping, the hum of machinery keeping people alive. I've been thinking about what happens after, Adrian said finally. After the surgery, after the trials, after everything settles. You and your father will need a new life, new identities if you want them. Protection until we're certain no one's coming for revenge. I've been thinking about that too. And I don't want to disappear. I don't want to hide. I spent years being invisible, being someone the world could ignore. I'm done with that. Even if it's dangerous, especially if it's dangerous. The people we exposed, they counted on everyone being too scared to fight back. I want them to see that someone wasn't. I want to be visible proof that they can be beaten. Adrian smiled slightly. You're braver than most soldiers I've known. I'm terrified constantly. That's what makes it brave. Elena looked at him, really looked. The exhaustion carved into his features, the pain he was trying to hide from old wounds not fully healed, the weight of everything he'd carried for months. Why did you really start this investigation? I told you, my sister. No, I mean, why you? You could have hired investigators, given information to the police, funded the fight from a distance. Why put yourself in the line of fire? Adrian was quiet for so long Elena thought he might not answer. Then, because I needed to believe I could be better than what I'd become. I built a life in gray areas, profiting from systems I knew were corrupt. I told myself I was just playing the game everyone else played. Then my sister died because of those same systems, and I realized there's no such thing as neutral. You're either making things better or making them worse. I'd been making them worse for years. And now? Now I'm trying to balance the scales. Probably won't succeed, but at least I'm trying. That's more than most people do. Most people haven't done the things I've done. Elena reached out and took his hand. Most people haven't done what you've done in the last week either. You saved lives, Adrian, including mine and my father's. That counts for something. His hand tightened around hers. Thank you. For what? For seeing me as something other than a criminal. For trusting me when you had no reason to. For fighting beside me when you could have run. I didn't have anywhere to run to. You always had a choice. You chose this. Chose to stand and fight. That's... He stopped, seemed to struggle for words. That's everything. They sat together in the quiet hospital room, hands linked, two people who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances and somehow made it mean something. The pre-dawn hours brought a flurry of activity. Nurses prepping Elena for surgery, checking her vitals, asking the same questions about allergies and medications. Her father was being prepared in a separate surgical suite. Dr. Ferretti stopped by to review the procedure one final time. We'll take your kidney laparoscopically if possible. Smaller incisions, faster recovery. Your father will be in surgery simultaneously in the adjoining operating room. Once we remove your kidney, we'll transplant it immediately. The whole procedure should take 4 to 6 hours. And his chances? If the transplant takes, excellent. His body should accept your kidney readily given the compatibility. But there are always risks: rejection, infection, surgical complications. We'll monitor both of you closely for the first 72 hours. Elena nodded, trying to absorb information through the pre-surgical sedatives already making her thoughts fuzzy. Your father asked me to give you this, Ferretti said, handing Elena a folded piece of paper. Elena opened it with shaking hands. Her father's handwriting, shaky but clear. Elena, if something goes wrong, know that I love you more than words can say. You are my greatest achievement, my proudest moment, my reason for everything. Don't blame yourself. Don't carry guilt. Just live. Live fully, bravely, with your whole heart. That's all I ever wanted for you. Your papa Elena was crying before she finished reading. The nurse gently took the note, promising to keep it safe. Then they were wheeling her toward the operating room, and the world was blurring around the edges. She caught glimpses through doorways, her father being prepared in the next suite, his eyes closed, looking peaceful. Luca standing guard in the hallway with 2 of his security team. Adrian watching from an observation window, his expression unreadable. The operating room was cold and bright. People in masks moved around her with practiced efficiency. Someone was explaining the anesthesia, counting backwards, saying she'd feel sleepy soon. Elena's last thought before the drugs pulled her under was simple and clear. Please let him live. Please. Consciousness returned in fragments. Pain first, sharp and localized in her abdomen. Then voices, distant and echoing, beeping machines, the weight of blankets, the particular quality of light that meant late afternoon. Elena opened her eyes to find herself in a recovery room. A nurse noticed immediately. Welcome back. How are you feeling? Like someone removed an organ. The nurse smiled. That's accurate. The surgery went well. You're in recovery. My father is in the next room. His surgery also went well. The kidney is functioning. Dr. Ferretti will be by soon to give you details. Relief flooded through Elena so intensely she started crying again. The nurse handed her tissues and checked her vitals while she composed herself. Adrian appeared in the doorway. Can she have visitors? 5 minutes, the nurse said. She needs rest. He came to her bedside, looking like he hadn't slept since she'd gone under. You scared me. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Be grateful you're alive and your father's alive and the surgery worked. It worked? Perfectly, from what they're telling me. Your kidney is already producing urine in his body. His color is better. His vitals are stable. Dr. Ferretti says if the next 48 hours go smoothly, he should make a full recovery. Elena closed her eyes, letting the news wash over her. Her father would live. That was all that mattered. There's something else, Adrian said carefully. While you were in surgery, there was an incident. Elena's eyes snapped open. What kind of incident? Someone tried to access the surgical floor, claimed to be hospital administration, had credentials that looked legitimate. Luca's team stopped them before they got anywhere near the operating rooms. Who were they? Still investigating. But whoever sent them knew you'd be vulnerable during surgery. They were planning something. Elena felt cold despite the warming blankets. It's not over. No, it's not. The arrests we made, the evidence we exposed, it's destroying the network. But there are still people out there who want revenge, who see you and your father as loose ends. Then what do? We finish it, completely. There's one more piece we need. What piece? Adrian pulled a chair close to her bed. The charity gala, the masked ball where they were planning to auction donor identities. It's still scheduled for tomorrow night. Tomorrow? But we already raided their operation. That was one operation, one hub. The gala is different. It's where the international buyers meet the suppliers, where money changes hands for access to trafficking networks across Europe. If we can expose what happens there, we don't just destroy the local operation, we destroy the entire market. Elena tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her abdomen. I just had surgery. I know, and I would never ask you to eat. But you need me there. Not you personally. We need someone who can blend in as staff, someone they wouldn't recognize, someone... Adrian stopped. Never mind. You just had major surgery. This is insane. It's necessary. Elena, you said it yourself. We need to finish this completely. If the gala is the final piece, then we go to the gala. You can barely move. I'll move better tomorrow, and I'll have painkillers. Elena looked at him. You weren't going to ask me. You were going to go alone, weren't you? His silence was answer enough. That's stupid, Elena said. You're still wounded from being shot. You're exhausted, and you're too recognizable. They'll spot you the moment you walk in. I'll wear a mask. It's a masked ball. It's still stupid. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. You're impossible. I'm committed. There's a difference. Dr. Ferretti arrived to check on Elena and put an immediate stop to the conversation. My patient needs rest, not strategy sessions. Out. She pointed at Adrian. I was just leaving. Good. And Miss Rosie, no strenuous activity for at least 6 weeks. That includes fighting crime. What about attending charity galas? Ferretti gave her a look. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. After the doctor left, Elena lay in her recovery bed thinking about the gala. About masked guests and hidden codes, and a final confrontation that could end everything or destroy them completely. Her abdomen throbbed with every breath. Her father was recovering in the next room from surgery that had saved his life. The smart thing would be to rest, heal, let others finish the fight. But Elena had stopped making smart choices the night she answered her phone at midnight. That evening, Luca smuggled in proper food to replace the hospital meal, pasta from a place near Elena's old workshop. She ate it sitting up in bed, moving carefully to avoid aggravating her incision. You're really planning to go to this gala, Luca said. Not a question. Adrian needs backup. He has me. He has our team. He needs someone who can move through the event without triggering suspicion. Your security, you'll be spotted. I'm a seamstress. I've worked these kinds of events. I know how to be invisible. Luca sighed. You're as stubborn as he is. Thank you. It wasn't a compliment. But he was already planning, Elena could tell, already thinking through logistics, security protocols, escape routes. That was what Luca did. He found ways to make impossible things survivable. The gala is at the Palazzo Contarini, he said. 16th century building, multiple floors, lots of rooms where private meetings could happen. Security will be heavy. Rich people, powerful people, criminals pretending to be philanthropists. It's going to be dangerous. Everything we've done has been dangerous. This is different. You'll be recovering from surgery, barely mobile, surrounded by people who want you dead. If something goes wrong, then you extract us. That's what you're good at. Luca smiled despite himself. You've learned too much from Adrian. Or he's learned from me. Maybe both. They spent the next hour planning. Elena would attend as catering staff again. It had worked before, and the gala organizers wouldn't recognize her from a different event. Luca would position his security team throughout the building, disguised as various staff and guests. Adrian would enter legitimately as an invited guest, wearing a mask that would hopefully let him blend long enough to access the private areas where the real business happened. What are we looking for specifically? Elena asked. The auction. They'll have a private room where invited buyers can bid on access to trafficking networks, donor databases, supply routes, corrupt medical professionals. It's all for sale if you have enough money. And we're going to stop it how? By documenting everything, getting evidence that connects the buyers to the suppliers. Once we expose the market, the entire system collapses. It sounded simple. Elena knew it wouldn't be. Paolo visited late that evening with updates on the investigation. Bianca Castellano's testimony is already paying off. She's given us names of buyers from 6 different countries, people who purchased access to blood supplies, organ donor lists, even living donors who could be coerced into voluntary transplants. She's really burning everyone to save herself. Yes, and it's working. Ferrara estimates we'll have 40 more arrests by the end of the week. International warrants, extraditions, the whole operation. But the gala still happens. Bianca claims she doesn't know the details. Says her husband kept that information compartmentalized. She ran the foundation's public face. He ran the criminal enterprise. Whether that's true or convenient, Paolo shrugged. Elena thought about Bianca Castellano, about the calendar full of blood type codes and collection schedules, about the elegant woman who'd sat in her workshop discussing dress designs while tracking human beings like inventory. Some lies were too convenient to believe. Make sure her testimony is verified, Elena said. Everything she tells you, cross-reference it with the evidence we already have. Don't let her manipulate the narrative just because she's cooperating. Already doing that. But Elena, Paolo hesitated. She mentioned you specifically in her testimony. What did she say? That you were a victim, an innocent seamstress caught up in something you didn't understand. She's positioning herself as someone who tried to protect you from her husband's criminal activities. Elena laughed bitterly. That's creative. It's strategic. She's building a defense that positions her as a victim too. Someone trapped in a bad marriage, coerced into cooperation, trying to help where she could. Except it's all lies. Yes, but lies that might work in court. Paolo looked genuinely troubled. The system isn't perfect, Elena. Sometimes guilty people find ways to minimize their punishment. Then we make sure the evidence is so overwhelming that her lies don't matter. We finish this at the gala. The next morning, Dr. Ferretti cleared Elena to leave the hospital against her better judgment. You should be resting for at least a week. What you're planning, whatever it is, could tear your incisions, cause internal bleeding, lead to serious complications. I understand the risks. Do you? Because you're 24 hours post-surgery. Your body is trying to heal from major trauma. If you push too hard, my father, how is he? The subject change was obvious, but Ferretti allowed it. Improving. The kidney is functioning well. His color is better. His vitals are strong. He's asking for you. Elena found her father in his room, looking more alive than he had in months. The grayish pallor was gone, replaced by something closer to his natural color. His eyes were clear when she entered. Elena, you shouldn't be walking around. I'm fine. You just gave me a kidney. You're not fine. He tried to sit up straighter. The nurses told me you're being discharged. Why? You should be recovering. I have something I need to do. No. Whatever it is, it can wait. Elena sat carefully in the chair beside his bed. Papa, the people who tried to hurt us, who wanted to use you, they're not finished. There's one more thing we need to do to make sure they can never hurt anyone again. And it can't wait until you're healed? No, it happens tonight. Her father's expression shifted through several emotions: fear, anger, resignation. Finally, acceptance. You're going to do this regardless of what I say. Yes. Then promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. Your mother would be so angry with me for letting you do this. Mama would understand. Maybe, or maybe she'd tell both of us we're insane. He reached for Elena's hand. Thank you for the kidney, for saving my life, for everything. You didn't have to. Of course I did. You're my father. Still, I know what it cost you, what it will cost you going forward, and I'm grateful. They sat together in the hospital room, father and daughter, both recovering from surgeries that had saved one life and changed another. Outside, Venice moved through its daily rhythms, unaware that tonight would bring one final confrontation. Luca picked Elena up from the hospital in an unmarked car. The security team is in position. Adrian is preparing. We've got surveillance on the palazzo since this morning. Heavy activity. Caterers, decorators, security contractors. It's going to be a major event. How many guests? 300 invited. Maybe half that many actually attending, but the private auction room can only hold 30. That's where the real business happens. Elena changed into her catering uniform in the car. Black pants, white shirt, minimal jewelry. Moving carefully to avoid aggravating her incision, Luca handed her pain medication and a small earpiece. Stay connected. Any sign of trouble, we extract immediately. Understood. The Palazzo Contarini was magnificent in the evening light. Venetian Gothic architecture at its finest, overlooking a smaller canal, lit by torches that made the whole building look like something from another century. Guests were already arriving, stepping from water taxis in evening wear and elaborate masks. Elena entered through the service entrance with other catering staff. Nobody looked twice at her. She was invisible again, just another worker maintaining the illusion of effortless elegance that wealthy events required. Inside, the palazzo was even more stunning. Frescoed ceilings, marble floors, chandeliers that probably cost more than Elena's entire neighborhood. Music drifted from somewhere. Live orchestra, classical pieces that provided sophisticated background to sophisticated conversation. "I'm in position," Elena whispered into her microphone. "Copy that," Luca's voice came back. "Adrian is entering now. North entrance, main reception area." Elena caught a glimpse of him across the grand hall. He wore an impeccable tuxedo and a mask that covered half his face, black and silver, elegant and anonymous. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, champagne in hand, nodding to people who probably wanted him dead if they knew who he really was. "The private rooms are on the third floor," Luca said. "East wing. We've identified the auction room. It's the only one with enhanced security." Elena worked her way through the palazzo, carrying trays, serving drinks, being invisible. Her abdomen throbbed with every step, but the pain medication kept it manageable. She passed elaborate masks and expensive jewelry, heard conversations in multiple languages about art and business, and nothing that mattered. At 10 o'clock, certain guests began moving toward the upper floors. Elena watched them go, men mostly, some women, all wealthy and confident. They were greeted at the third-floor landing by private security who checked invitations against a list. "That's the auction group," Luca confirmed. 32 people heading up. Adrian is among them. Elena found a service staircase and made her way to the third floor. The hallway outside the auction room was heavily guarded, but there was a service entrance through the kitchen area that connected to multiple rooms. She slipped through it, moving carefully, trying not to attract attention. Through a partially open door, she could see into the auction room. Rows of elegant chairs facing a small stage. A podium, and on the walls, digital displays showing what looked like medical records, donor lists, supply chain routes. Everything neatly organized and ready for sale. A man stepped onto the stage. Elena recognized him from the files, Alberto Grimaldi, the senator who'd been arrested and released on bail pending trial. He smiled at the assembled crowd. "Welcome, friends. Tonight we offer opportunities that exist nowhere else. Access to supply networks across Europe, verified and operational. Donor databases from 12 countries. Medical professionals willing to expedite procedures for the right compensation. Everything you need to ensure your clients receive what they require, when they require it." Elena felt sick. He was selling human beings, packaging exploitation as a service. "We'll start the bidding with our premium tier, full network access, including transport logistics and documentation services. Opening bid is 5 million euros. Hands went up. People bid like they were buying art, casual and certain. The price climbed. 7 million, 9 million, 12 million. "Sold to bidder 17, congratulations." It continued. Different packages, different access levels, all of it revolving around treating people as commodities. Elena activated her microphone. "Are you getting this?" "Every word," Luca confirmed. "And recording everything, the displays, the bidders, all of it." Adrian's voice came through, quiet. "I've accessed their server room. It's adjacent to the auction space. Downloading their complete client database now." "How long?" 2 minutes, maybe 3. On stage, Grimaldi was presenting another package. "This one is special. Direct access to a hospital's emergency donor registry. You provide the requirements, they provide the matches. No waiting, no complications. More bidding, more money changing hands for access to human suffering." Elena's microphone crackled. Adrian's voice, tense. "We have a problem. Someone's coming. Security sweep. Can you hide?" "Not without disconnecting the download. I need 30 more seconds." Elena made a decision. She stepped out of the service area and into the main hallway, directly in front of the guards approaching the server room. "Excuse me," she said, stumbling slightly. "I'm looking for the restroom. Someone said it was up here?" The guards stopped. One of them frowned. "Service staff shouldn't be on this floor." "I'm sorry. I'm new." The other floors were crowded, and She swayed, clutching her abdomen. The pain was real enough. I don't feel well. The guards exchanged looks. One spoke into his radio while the other approached Elena. Miss, you need to return to the service areas. I know. I'm sorry. Elena's legs gave out. She didn't have to fake that part. The pain medication was wearing off, and her body was reminding her that 24 hours ago someone had removed an organ. The guard caught her before she hit the floor. She's sick. Get medical up here. Adrian's voice in her ear barely audible. Download complete. Moving now. The guards were distracted helping Elena, calling for medical assistance, trying to figure out what to do with a sick staff member. They didn't notice Adrian slip out of the server room and blend back into the auction crowd. I've got her, Luca said, appearing from the service stairwell. She's with me. I'll handle this. The guards looked relieved to hand off the problem. Luca helped Elena back down the stairs, supporting her weight. That was stupid, he said quietly. That was necessary. You're bleeding. Your incision opened. Elena looked down. He was right. Blood was seeping through her white shirt. It's fine. It's not fine. We're extracting now. Not yet. We need to... Bob. Elena, you're bleeding and barely conscious. We're done. But they weren't done. Because at that moment, alarms started screaming. Someone had discovered Adrian's intrusion into the server room. Someone had realized the auction was being documented, recorded, exposed. The entire palazzo erupted into chaos. Guards flooded the hallways. Guests panicked. The carefully orchestrated evening collapsed into confusion and fear. Luca pulled Elena into a storage room. Stay here, don't move. I'm getting Adrian. He disappeared into the chaos. Elena sat among mops and cleaning supplies, trying to stay conscious through pain and blood loss. Through the door, she could hear shouting, running footsteps, the sound of something breaking. Her earpiece crackled. Multiple voices talking over each other. Adrian calling for extraction, Luca coordinating his team, someone, she couldn't tell who, screaming about police. Then gunfire. Elena's blood went cold. She tried to stand, to go help, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The room spun. She was going to pass out. The door opened. A man entered, not Luca, not Adrian, one of the guards from upstairs. He looked at Elena, at the blood on her shirt, at her catering uniform. You're the one who distracted us. You're with them. I don't know what... He pulled a gun. Where's Valente? Elena didn't answer. The guard moved closer, weapon raised. I asked you a question. Before Elena could respond, the door exploded inward. Adrian came through it in a rush of violence. He hit the guard so hard the man dropped without a sound. Can you walk? Adrian asked Elena. I don't think so. Then hold on. He lifted her carefully, trying not to jar her injured abdomen, and carried her back into the chaos. The palazzo was swarming now. Luca's security team, police responding to the disturbance, guards trying to contain guests who were trying to flee. Through it all, Adrian moved with purpose. He knew this building, knew the escape routes. They descended a servant's staircase that led to a water entrance. A boat waited, Luca at the helm. Go! Adrian shouted, depositing Elena into the boat. They shot away from the palazzo just as more police arrived. Elena lay in the bottom of the boat, watching Venice blur past above her, trying to stay conscious. Did we get it? She asked. The evidence? All of it, Adrian said. The database, the auction recording, everything. We got it all. Then the adrenaline ran out, and Elena let the darkness take her. She woke to bright lights and the smell of antiseptic. Again. Elena was getting tired of waking up in hospitals. Dr. Ferretti stood over her, looking equal parts concerned and furious. You tore 3 stitches. You're lucky you didn't cause internal bleeding. What were you thinking? That I had something important to do. More important than healing from major surgery? Elena didn't answer. They both knew the answer. Ferretti sighed and checked Elena's chart. We've repaired the damage. You'll need to stay here at least 3 more days. And this time, you actually rest. No investigations, no charity galas, no heroics, just rest. My father is doing well, better than you, frankly. He's been asking about you constantly. Blames himself for you being reckless. It's not his fault. No, it's yours. and Adrian Valente's. Speaking of which, Ferretti glanced toward the door. He's been here all night, won't leave. I told him visiting hours ended at 9, but he just moved to the waiting room. Should I call security or let him keep lurking? Despite everything, Elena smiled. Let him lurk. After Ferretti left, Elena tried to take stock. Her abdomen hurt worse than before. Her whole body felt bruised and exhausted. But they'd done it. They'd gotten the evidence from the gala, documented the auction, downloaded the client database. Whatever pain she was in now, it was worth it. Luca appeared in her doorway an hour later. His arm was still in a sling, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. You're awake. Apparently. Good. Because Ferrara wants to talk to you, and he's not happy. Captain Ferrara arrived 20 minutes later with Paolo and a recorder. He set it on the table beside Elena's bed and pressed record without preamble. Miss Rossi, please explain why you attended a charity gala less than 24 hours after donating a kidney to your father. I needed to help finish what we started. You needed to rest and heal. Instead, you participated in what amounts to an illegal infiltration of a private event, endangered yourself and others, and required emergency medical treatment. Do you understand how many laws you broke? I understand we got evidence of an international trafficking auction. I understand we documented wealthy people bidding on access to human beings. I understand we downloaded a complete client database that will lead to arrests across Europe. Sir. Ferrara's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened slightly. The evidence you obtained is being analyzed now. Preliminary review suggests it's comprehensive. Very comprehensive. Good. It's also legally questionable. You entered a private event under false pretenses. Adrian Valente accessed computer systems without authorization. The recordings were made without consent. Of people committing crimes, Elena interrupted. You're telling me that evidence won't hold up in court because we didn't ask permission before documenting them selling human beings? Paolo spoke up. She has a point. The content of the recordings is so damning that any half-competent prosecutor will find a way to use them. And the client database Valente downloaded, that's not protected data. It's a criminal organization's records. Ferrara rubbed his temples. This is going to be a legal nightmare. But a successful one, Paolo pressed. You have evidence of international trafficking operations. Names, dates, financial transactions. This case is going to make your career while destroying one of the most sophisticated criminal networks in Europe. Does it really matter how we got it? The law matters. Proper procedure matters. Justice matters more, Elena said quietly. And justice is what we delivered. Ferrara looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned off the recorder. Off the record, you're right. What you did was reckless and illegal and incredibly stupid. It was also brave and necessary, and probably the only way to actually stop these people. He stood. On the record, I'm formally reprimanding you for interfering in an ongoing investigation. Unofficially, thank you. After Ferrara left, Paolo stayed behind. The story is exploding. Every major outlet is covering it. International blood trafficking network exposed in Venice. I've had 3 different newspapers offer me exclusive rights to the full investigation. Are you taking them? I'm writing it myself. Independent publication, complete transparency about sources and methods. No editorial interference from papers that might want to protect certain wealthy people. Paolo pulled out his phone and showed Elena. Look at this. The screen showed headlines from across Europe. Arrests in Switzerland, Germany, France. The auction database had connected networks that law enforcement had been chasing for years. Suddenly, everything was coming apart. How many arrests total? Elena asked. 73 so far, and climbing. Interpol is coordinating raids across 8 countries. Bank accounts are being frozen. Medical licenses are being revoked. Paolo seemed to search for words. It's the biggest trafficking bust in European history. Elena thought about all the people in those medical files, all the victims who'd been treated as inventory. What about them? The people who were exploited? Ferrara's team is reaching out to everyone they can identify, offering medical care, counseling, protection if needed. It's a massive undertaking, but they're trying. Trying isn't enough. No, but it's a start. Elena's father was moved to a room down the hall that afternoon. The doctors wanted them close for monitoring, and neither patient was in any condition to argue. Elena convinced the nurses to let her visit him. She used a wheelchair, moved slowly, and promised not to do anything stupid. Her father looked better than he had in years. The kidney transplant had transformed him, bringing color back to his face and strength back to his voice. Elena, you look terrible. Thanks, Papa. What did you do? The nurses won't tell me anything except that you tore your stitches, Elena told him. Not everything. She left out the guns and the violence and how close she'd come to bleeding out in a storage closet. But she told him enough. About the gala, the auction, the evidence they'd collected. About the network collapsing across Europe because they'd refused to stop fighting. Her father listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Your mother would have done the same thing, he finally said. You think so? I know so. She never could stand by when people were being hurt, even when it was dangerous, even when it cost her something. He reached for Elena's hand. I just wish it didn't have to be so hard. I wish you could have a normal life. I don't want a normal life. I want a meaningful one. You have that. Trust me. They sat together in comfortable silence. Two people who'd survived something impossible, who'd given pieces of themselves to save each other, who'd come out the other side changed but alive. Adrian finally appeared in Elena's room late that evening. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. Exhausted, pale, moving carefully like everything hurt. You should be resting, Elena said. So should you. I am resting. I'm in a hospital bed. You were in a hospital bed yesterday too, and that didn't stop you from infiltrating a criminal auction. Adrian sat in the chair beside her bed. Ferretti wants to kill me. Says I'm a terrible influence. She's not wrong. Probably not. He was quiet for a moment. I owe you another apology. I shouldn't have let you come to the gala. You were recovering from surgery, barely mobile, and You didn't let me do anything. I made a choice. Stop trying to take responsibility for my decisions. Someone should take responsibility. This whole situation, you getting hurt, your father needing a transplant, everything, it started because I got shot and you saved my life. Elena grabbed his hand. Listen to me. I'm not a victim. I'm not some innocent bystander who got caught in your mess. I'm a participant. I chose to fight. I chose to keep fighting when I could have walked away. And I'd make the same choices again. Even knowing what it cost? Especially knowing what it cost. Because it mattered. We mattered. The people we saved mattered. She squeezed his hand. Stop carrying guilt that isn't yours. You didn't make this world corrupt. You just decided to fight back against it. That's not a crime. Adrian looked at their joined hands. When this is all over, the trials, the investigations, everything, what will you do? I don't know. My workshop is destroyed. My old life is gone. I can't exactly go back to being an invisible seamstress. You were never invisible. I was to everyone except you. Something shifted in his expression. Elena! A knock interrupted whatever he was about to say. Luca entered, followed by two people Elena didn't recognize, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a younger man carrying a briefcase. Sorry to interrupt, Luca said, but there's something you both need to hear. This is Dr. Marina Rossi, no relation, and attorney Marco Venturi. They have a proposal. Dr. Rossi spoke first. Miss Rossi, Mr. Valente. I represent a coalition of medical professionals who've been horrified by the trafficking network's exposure. We've been discussing ways to ensure this never happens again, ways to protect vulnerable patients and rebuild trust in the medical system. That's ambitious, Adrian said carefully. It's necessary, and we believe you two are essential to making it work. She glanced at Attorney Venturi, who opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. We're proposing the establishment of a patient advocacy foundation, Venturi explained. Independent oversight of donor registries, whistleblower protections for medical staff, resources for victims of medical exploitation. The foundation would be funded by seized assets from the trafficking network and supplemented by private donations. Sabwasti, Elena tried to process this. You want to create an entire foundation? We want you to create it, Dr. Rossi corrected. You've proven you understand how these systems fail vulnerable people. You've shown you're willing to fight for victims even when it's dangerous. And you have credibility, both of you. Elena as someone who experienced the system's failures firsthand. Adrian as someone who dedicated significant resources to exposing corruption. I'm a criminal, Adrian said bluntly. My credibility is questionable at best. You're a man who used criminal methods to stop criminals, Venturi countered. In the public eye, that's redemption, especially if you dedicate yourself to preventing future exploitation. Elena looked at Adrian. He looked as overwhelmed as she felt. This is a lot to take in. You don't need to decide now, Dr. Rossi said. But think about it. You've already done the hard part, exposing the network, gathering evidence, forcing the system to pay attention. Now we have a chance to build something lasting from that, something that protects people instead of exploiting them. After they left, Elena and Adrian sat in silence for several minutes. Did that really just happen? Elena asked. I think so. They want us to run a foundation, a legitimate, legal, helpful foundation. Apparently. Elena started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of going from fighting for survival to being offered a position running a patient advocacy organization was too much. Adrian joined her, and soon they were both laughing like idiots while Luca watched from the doorway looking confused. What's funny? Luca asked. Everything, Elena managed between laughs. Absolutely everything. But as the laughter faded, Elena found herself actually considering the proposal. A foundation meant resources. It meant the ability to help people systematically instead of just reacting to crises. It meant taking everything they'd learned and using it to prevent others from suffering the same exploitation. We should do it, she said. Adrian looked at her. You're serious? Why not? We've already fought the hard fight. We've already exposed the corruption. Why not use that to build something good? Because I don't know how to build things. I know how to destroy them. My entire life has been about operating in shadows, exploiting systems, profiting from gray areas. I wouldn't know where to start with something legitimate. Then we learned together. You said it yourself. You wanted to believe you could be better than what you'd become. Here's your chance. And you? What do you want? Elena thought about it. About her mother's voice saying, stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. About all the years she'd spent invisible, struggling, feeling like her life only mattered when she was useful to someone else. I want to matter, she said simply, not because I'm serving wealthy people or surviving poverty. I want to matter because I'm helping others matter, because I'm part of something bigger than just getting through the day. Adrian was quiet, but Elena could see him thinking, weighing possibilities, imagining a future that didn't involve looking over his shoulder constantly. If we do this, he said slowly, it changes everything. My business operations, my reputation, my entire life. I'd have to go legitimate, actually legitimate, not just pretending. Is that a bad thing? It's terrifying. Most worthwhile things are. He smiled slightly. When did you become so wise? Somewhere between donating blood to a dying stranger and having my kidney removed. It's been an educational week. The next 3 days passed in a blur of medical monitoring, legal consultations, and media management. Paolo published his exposé on the trafficking network, and it exploded across international news. Other journalists picked up the story, adding details and context. The public response was overwhelming. Outrage, demands for justice, calls for systemic reform. Senator Grimaldi tried to claim he'd been entrapped, that the auction was a sting operation he was participating in to gather evidence. Nobody believed him. The recordings were too clear, his involvement too documented. He was denied bail and sent to await trial. Dr. Castellano attempted suicide in his cell. He survived, barely, and was moved to a psychiatric facility under heavy guard. His wife Bianca continued cooperating with investigators, providing testimony that connected dozens more people to the network. Her lawyers were already negotiating a plea deal. The international arrests continued. Switzerland, Germany, France, Spain, all reported taking down cells of the trafficking operation. Bank accounts were frozen across Europe, totaling over 200 million euros. Medical licenses were revoked. Hospital administrators were fired. The entire system was being forced to confront how extensively it had been corrupted. Elena watched it unfold from her hospital bed, still recovering but getting stronger each day. Her father was doing even better. His new kidney was functioning perfectly, his strength returning rapidly. The doctors were talking about discharge within the week. On the fourth day, Captain Ferrara visited with news. We've identified the person who tried to access the surgical floor during your operation. His name is Viktor Molnar. Hungarian national, works as a freelance enforcer for various criminal organizations. He was hired to eliminate you while you were vulnerable. Hired by who? He's not talking, but we have his phone records. The calls trace back to a burner cell that pinged towers near the Palazzo Contarini the night of the gala. Whoever hired him was there, watching the auction. So they're still out there. Some of them, yes. We've dismantled the organization, but individual actors remain. People with money and motivation to silence witnesses. Ferrara looked serious. I'm recommending protective custody for both you and your father, at least until the primary trials conclude. For how long? 6 months, maybe longer. Elena felt something sink in her chest. We can't live in hiding for 6 months. You might not have a choice. These people have already tried to kill you once. They'll try again if given the opportunity. After Ferrara left, Elena sat staring at the wall. 6 months in protective custody meant 6 months of her life stolen, 6 months of looking over her shoulder, 6 months of letting fear control everything. After everything they'd fought for, it felt like losing anyway. Adrian appeared that evening with Luca and someone new, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an air of competent authority. Elena, this is Giulia Marchetti, head of personal security for the Venturi legal firm. She has a proposal that's different from Ferrara's protective custody plan. Giulia sat down and spoke directly. Captain Ferrara wants to hide you. I want to protect you while you live your life. There's a difference. Explain. Protective custody means isolation. Safe houses, restricted movement, constant supervision. It's effective but suffocating. I'm proposing active security instead. You and your father resume normal life, or as normal as possible, while my team provides round-the-clock protection. Armed guards, secure transport, threat assessment, the works. That sounds expensive. It is, but Mr. Valente is covering the costs. Elena looked at Adrian. You don't have to. Yes, I do. This happened because of me. The least I can do is make sure you're safe while living the life you want. The life I want might include running a patient advocacy foundation. That means public appearances, speaking engagements, confronting the exact systems that want me dead. Then we make that possible safely, Giulia said. My team has protected diplomats, corporate executives, people with serious threats against them. We're good at our job. Elena thought about it. 6 months in hiding versus 6 months building something meaningful with protection. The choice seemed obvious, but the fear was real. Someone had already tried to kill her once. They would try again. What do you think? She asked Adrian. I think you should do what feels right. But I also think hiding won't make you safer. These people know where you are. They know you're a threat. Whether you're in protective custody or actively working against them doesn't change that. At least this way, you're doing something that matters while being protected. And you? What will you do? The same. Giulia's team will cover both of us. If we're doing this foundation thing, we do it together, publicly, making it clear that we're not hiding, we're not afraid, and we're not stopping. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, maybe both. Okay, Elena said. Let's do it. Giulia nodded approvingly. Good. We'll start with a security assessment of your father's living situation. He'll need modifications to his home or relocation to a more secure location. Then we'll establish protocols for your movements, communications, everything. Within a week, you'll be able to resume normal life with appropriate protection. After they left, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Not the desperate kind that came from survival, but the genuine kind that came from possibility. They'd fought so hard just to stay alive, to expose the network, to survive each day. Now they had a chance to actually build something from the ashes. Her father visited that evening, walking on his own now, looking stronger every day. The nurses tell me you're being discharged tomorrow. If Ferretti agrees I'm healed enough. And then what? Then we start over. New apartment, somewhere safe. New work. The foundation, if we move forward with it. New life. Sounds expensive. Adrian is helping with the costs. Her father's expression was complicated. This man, Adrian Valente, he's important to you. It wasn't a question. Elena considered how to answer. He saved my life. I saved his. We fought together against something bigger than either of us. So yes, he's important. Is he good to you? He's honest with me. He doesn't treat me like I'm fragile or stupid or someone who needs protecting from reality. He sees me as an equal. That's not the same as good. No, but it's rare and valuable. Her father studied her face. You care about him, more than just as an ally. Elena didn't deny it. I don't know what we are. Partners, maybe. Friends who survived impossible things together. It's complicated. Most worthwhile things are, her father said, echoing her own words back to her. Just be careful with your heart, Elena. It's been through enough trauma already. I will, Papa. But Elena wasn't sure that was a promise she could keep. Her heart was already involved, already tangled up with a criminal-turned-ally who'd given her purpose and partnership and the feeling of mattering. Whether that was wise or not wasn't really the question anymore. Dr. Ferretti discharged Elena the next morning with strict instructions. No strenuous activity for 4 more weeks. No heavy lifting, no fighting crime. She gave Elena a pointed look on that last one. You need to actually heal this time. I'll try. Trying isn't enough. Your body has been through major surgery twice in 1 week. If you don't give it time to recover properly, you'll have permanent damage. Understood. Elena left the hospital in a wheelchair, required by policy, but walked to the car waiting outside. Adrian had arranged transport to a new apartment, one of several properties he owned that had been modified for security. Julia's team had swept it for threats, installed additional locks and cameras, and stationed guards at every entrance. The apartment was in Cannaregio, not far from where Elena's workshop had been. It was smaller than the safe houses she'd stayed in, but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that actually had counter space, windows that looked out on a quiet canal. Her father would have the larger bedroom with space for his medical equipment. Elena would take the smaller one. It's temporary, Adrian explained as Luca helped move in basic furniture. Until we find something more permanent, or until you decide what you want long term. Elena walked through the space, touching walls, testing light switches, trying to make it feel real. I don't know what I want long term. I've spent so many years just surviving day to day that planning for a future feels strange. You have time to figure it out. Do I? There are still people out there who want me dead. Which is why Julia's team is stationed outside, and why Luca has panic buttons installed in every room, and why you have a direct line to Ferrara's office if anything feels wrong. Adrian caught her hand. You're as safe as we can make you. Safe isn't the same as free. No, but it's better than dead. Elena couldn't argue with that. Her father arrived an hour later, transported by medical van with a nurse supervising. He looked around the apartment with approval. This is nice. Better than our old place. It's temporary. Everything's temporary, Elena. Might as well enjoy it while we can. That evening, they had their first real meal together in what felt like forever. Luca had arranged for food from a nearby restaurant, pasta, bread, wine, for those who could drink it. Elena, her father, Adrian, Luca, Paolo, and Julia sat around a table that was too small for 6 people, but somehow made it work. To survival, Paolo said, raising his glass, and to justice, however messy the path to it. They drank to that. Then Paolo shared updates on the investigation, more arrests in Eastern Europe, more assets seized, more victims identified, and offered help. The network was collapsing completely, taking down people who'd thought themselves untouchable. The trials start in 3 months, Paolo said. Grimaldi first, then Castellano, then the others. Prosecutors are building cases that should put most of them away for decades. And Bianca? Elena asked. Still negotiating. Her lawyers want probation and time served. Prosecutors want at least 5 years. It'll probably land somewhere in the middle. Elena felt the familiar anger at that, but also acceptance. The system wasn't perfect. Some people would get lighter sentences than they deserved, but the network itself was destroyed. The operation shut down. The victims being helped. That was what mattered. After dinner, Adrian asked Elena to take a walk with him. Julia's team followed at a discreet distance, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to provide the illusion of privacy. They walked along the canal in the evening light. Venice was beautiful this time of day, all golden shadows and reflected water. Elena had lived here her entire life, but had rarely had time to just appreciate it. "I've been thinking about the foundation proposal," Adrian said, "about what it would mean to actually do it. And I think we should, but I want to make sure you understand what you'd be getting into. Running a foundation means bureaucracy, fundraising, politics. It means dealing with wealthy donors who think their money buys influence. It means endless meetings and compromises and frustration. Sounds terrible. It is. I've watched enough charitable organizations to know they're often more about optics than actual help. Then we make ours different. How?" Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. "We make it about the people we're trying to help, not the people donating. We build it from the ground up with input from victims, from medical professionals who actually care, from people who've been through the system and know where it fails. We make it real instead of performative." "That's idealistic." "Good. The world needs more idealism and less cynicism." Adrian smiled. "You're right about all of it. So yes, let's do this. Let's build something that actually matters." They continued walking. The security team followed. Venice moved around them, oblivious to the conversation happening on its ancient streets. "There's something else I need to tell you," Adrian said after a while. "About my businesses. The legitimate ones and the others." "Okay. I'm shutting them down. All of them. The import-export operations, the gray market connections, everything. If I'm going to run a foundation dedicated to protecting vulnerable people, I can't have my wealth coming from morally questionable sources. That's a big decision. It's necessary. Luca thinks I'm insane. He's probably right. But I can't build something good on a foundation of compromise. Either I commit to doing this right, or I don't do it at all." Elena understood the weight of what he was saying. Adrian was giving up his entire professional identity, the empire he'd built over years, to start over doing something legitimate. It was terrifying and brave and exactly the kind of commitment that made her trust him. "What will you do for money?" she asked practically. "I have savings, investments that are actually legal. And once we get the foundation established, there'll be a salary from that. It won't be the wealth I'm used to, but it'll be enough. More importantly, it'll be clean." They reached a small bridge over the canal. Adrian stopped and leaned against the railing, looking out at the water. "When I started investigating the trafficking network, I told myself it was about justice for my sister. And it was, partly. But it was also about proving I could be better than what I'd become. That underneath all the criminal activity and moral compromise, there was still someone worth being. You proved that already. Did I? Because most of what we did was illegal. We broke laws, invaded privacy, took justice into our own hands. We became what we were fighting against in some ways. No, Elena said firmly. We became people willing to fight when nobody else would. There's a difference between breaking laws for profit and breaking them to save lives. The law doesn't care about our motivations. The law is imperfect. It failed those victims. It failed my father. It would have failed everyone if we hadn't acted. So yes, we broke laws. I'd do it again." Adrian looked at her, and something in his expression made Elena's breath catch. "You're remarkable. Do you know that? I'm a seamstress who got caught up in something bigger than her. You're a woman who chose to fight instead of hide, who gave her kidney to save her father, who walked into danger repeatedly because it was right. That's not ordinary, Elena. That's extraordinary." Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're giving me too much credit." "I'm giving you exactly the credit you've earned." They stood on the bridge in the fading light, looking at each other. The security team waited patiently nearby. Venice moved around them, and Elena felt something shift between them, recognition of what they'd become to each other through violence and survival and shared purpose. "Adrian, I know this is complicated," he said quickly. "I know you've been through hell and you're still recovering and you don't need more emotional complications, but I need you to know—" He stopped, started again. "You matter to me. More than the investigation, more than the foundation, more than any of it. You matter." Elena's heart was hammering. "You matter to me too. As a partner, an ally, as someone I trust, someone I respect, someone I—" She couldn't quite say the rest, but her expression said it anyway. Adrian stepped closer. "I don't want to rush anything. I don't want to pressure you. But I also don't want to hide how I feel. I don't want you to hide it. Then I won't. I care about you, Elena Rossi. I admire you. And when this is all over, when the trials are done and the threats have faded and we have space to breathe, I'd like to see what we could be if we weren't just fighting to survive." Elena reached up and touched his face. "I'd like that too." He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious. Elena kissed him back, tasting possibility and hope and the promise of a future that might actually be worth living. The security team politely looked away. Venice kept moving, and for the first time in longer than Elena could remember, she felt like something more than just a survivor. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "So," Adrian said, "we build a foundation, we fight for victims, and we figure out what we are to each other. In that order?" "In that order," Elena agreed, "one impossible thing at a time." They walked back to the apartment hand in hand, protected by guards, planning a future that felt both terrifying and necessary. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, legal consultations, security briefings, foundation planning. But tonight, Elena had hope, real, genuine hope that her life might become something more than just survival. Her father was waiting when they returned, sitting in his new room with a book. He looked up when Elena entered and smiled knowingly. "You look happy." "I am, surprisingly." "Good. You deserve happiness. You've earned it. So have you, Papa. I have you and a working kidney. That's all the happiness I need." He set down his book. "This foundation you're planning, you're really doing it?" "We're really doing it." "Then I'm proud of you. Your mother would be too." Elena kissed his forehead. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building something new." "Looking forward to it." Elena went to her own room and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her abdomen still ached from surgery. Her body was exhausted from everything it had been through. But her mind was racing with possibilities. A foundation that actually helped people. A purpose beyond survival. A partnership with Adrian that might become something deeper. A future that looked nothing like the desperate present she'd been trapped in for so long. It was terrifying. It was overwhelming. It was exactly what she needed. Outside her window, Venice settled into its nighttime rhythms. The city that had witnessed centuries of crimes and redemptions, of corruption and justice, of people fighting against systems designed to crush them. Elena was just one more person in that long history. But maybe, just maybe, she'd be one who actually made a difference. She fell asleep thinking about tomorrow, about foundations and futures, and the impossible possibility that everything they'd fought for might actually mean something. Tomorrow arrived with complications nobody expected. Elena woke to her phone buzzing with messages from Paolo. She read them through bleary eyes, her stomach sinking with each line. Victor Molnar, the enforcer hired to kill her during surgery, had been found dead in his cell. Apparent suicide. Except the security footage showed him alone for only 8 minutes. Not nearly enough time for what the medical examiner described as methodical strangulation. Someone had silenced him before he could talk. Someone with access to the detention facility, resources to corrupt guards, and motivation to keep their identity hidden. Adrian was already in the kitchen when Elena emerged, reading the same news on his laptop. "This changes things." "How?" "Molnar was our best lead on who's still actively hunting you. Now he's gone, which means we're back to guessing. And whoever killed him is confident enough to murder someone in police custody. That's not desperation, that's power." Luca arrived 20 minutes later with Julia. They convened around Elena's small kitchen table while her father slept in the next room, still blissfully unaware of the new threat. "Ferrara is furious. Luca reported. He's investigating everyone who had access to Molnar's cell. But realistically, we're looking at possibly corrupted guards, falsified records, and a killer who knew exactly when to strike. This was professional. So we're still targets, Elena said. You are always going to be targets until the trials conclude and everyone involved is sentenced. But yes, this confirms that whoever's behind the remaining threats has significant resources and connections. Julia pulled out her tablet and showed them a security assessment. I'm recommending we increase your protection detail. Additional guards, rotation schedules that prevent predictability, secure transport for all movements. That sounds like a prison. That sounds like staying alive, Julia countered. Look, I understand the desire for normalcy, but someone just committed murder in a police facility to protect their identity. They're not going to hesitate to try again. Elena looked at Adrian. What do you think? I think we knew this wouldn't be easy. We exposed powerful people who've spent decades building their criminal empire. They're not going down without fighting back. He closed his laptop. But I also think hiding gives them exactly what they want, silence. If we proceed with the foundation, make ourselves visible, we become harder targets. Public figures attract attention, and attention makes murder complicated. Or it makes us easier to find. There's risk either way. The question is which risk comes with something meaningful attached to it. Elena thought about spending months hidden away versus spending those same months building something that mattered. The choice felt impossible and obvious at the same time. We proceed with the foundation, she decided, but we do it carefully, with security, with precautions, without being stupid about it. Define not being stupid, Luca said dryly. We don't attend events alone. We vary our schedules. We listen when Julia tells us something's dangerous. Elena looked at the security chief. Does that work? It's a start. I'll put together a comprehensive security protocol by this afternoon. After they left, Adrian stayed. He helped Elena make coffee, real coffee, the kind that actually tasted good instead of the hospital swill she'd been surviving on. They sat by the window watching Venice wake up, both of them exhausted, but too wired to sleep. Are you scared? Elena asked. Constantly. But I've learned that being scared doesn't mean stopping. It just means being careful while moving forward. Your sister would be proud of what you're doing. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I hope so. I spent so long after she died just being angry. At the system, at the criminals, at myself for not protecting her. The anger was easier than the grief. And now? Now I'm trying to channel it into something useful. The foundation, exposing the network, helping victims. It doesn't bring her back, but maybe it prevents other families from going through what mine did. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. That's more than most people would do. Most people haven't failed someone the way I failed her. You didn't fail her. The system did. The criminals did. You were just another victim of their corruption. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, but it means you don't have to carry guilt that isn't yours. Elena squeezed his hand. We're all doing the best we can with broken tools in a broken system. The fact that you're trying to fix some of it, that's what matters. They sat together while Venice moved outside. Boats on the canal, tourists with cameras, locals going about their daily routines. Normal life happening all around them while they planned how to stay alive long enough to change things. The foundation work began in earnest 3 days later. Dr. Rossi and Attorney Venturi returned with a full proposal, organizational structure, funding sources, mission statement, everything. They'd even secured preliminary commitments from several legitimate donors who wanted to support patient advocacy. The key is independence, Venturi explained. The foundation can't be controlled by medical institutions, government agencies, or wealthy donors with agendas. It needs to answer only to the patients and families it serves. How do we ensure that? Elena asked. Board structure. We populate it with former patients, medical whistleblowers, advocacy experts. People who understand the system's failures firsthand. You and Adrian would serve as co-directors, but the board would have oversight and veto power. It made sense. The whole point was creating something that couldn't be corrupted the way the medical system had been. That required checks and balances, transparency, accountability. Over the next week, they built the foundation's framework. Elena worked with Dr. Rossi to identify potential board members, people who'd been exploited by the medical system and survived to tell about it. Adrian coordinated with Venturi on legal structure and funding mechanisms. Luca arranged security for all meetings. Paolo documented everything for the eventual story he'd publish. The foundation needed a name. They debated dozens of options before Elena suggested something simple: the Elena Rossi Patient Protection Foundation. Absolutely not, Elena said immediately. I'm not naming it after myself. Why not? Dr. Rossi countered. You're the one who exposed the network. You're the one who gave your kidney to save your father. You're the face of why this matters. This isn't about me, it's about the victims. You are a victim, and using your name gives the foundation credibility and recognition. People will remember the seamstress who took down a trafficking network. They'll trust an organization bearing that name. Elena hated the attention, but she understood the logic. Still, compromise seemed necessary. What about the Rossi Foundation for Patient Advocacy? It's named after my father too, and it focuses on the mission rather than any individual. They settled on that. The paperwork was filed, the legal structure established. Within 2 weeks, the Rossi Foundation for Patient Advocacy officially existed. The first major challenge came when they tried to secure office space. Several landlords refused once they learned what the foundation was, either because they were connected to people arrested in the trafficking network or simply because they didn't want the controversy. Finally, a property owner who'd lost his daughter to medical exploitation offered them a space at below-market rent. The office was small but functional. 2 rooms in a building near the Rialto Bridge, with enough space for desks, filing cabinets, and the security measures Julia insisted on installing. Elena stood in the empty space and tried to imagine it filled with people working to help others. It's perfect, her father said. He'd insisted on seeing the office despite still being on restricted activity from his surgery. Your mother would have loved this. You think so? I know so. She always said the world needed more people willing to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. This is that fight, Elena, just more organized. They hired their first employee a week later, a former nurse named Carla, who'd been fired for reporting irregularities in her hospital's donor registry. She'd tried to go through proper channels, got ignored, then punished for making noise. Now she wanted to help others avoid her fate. I'm not looking for a job, Carla said during her interview. I'm looking for a mission. If you're building something that actually protects patients instead of institutions, I want to be part of it. She started the next day. More employees followed. A data analyst who'd uncovered fraud in medical billing. A social worker who'd seen patients exploited by the system she was supposed to help them navigate. A lawyer who'd quit corporate practice to do advocacy work. Each of them came with stories of the system's failures and determination to fix it. The foundation's first case came from an unexpected source, a woman named Bianca Castellano. She contacted them through her lawyers, requesting a meeting. Elena's first instinct was to refuse, but Attorney Venturi convinced her otherwise. She's offering to donate significantly to the foundation, and she claims to have information about remaining trafficking operations that she didn't share with police. Why would she contact us instead of Ferrara? Because she wants public rehabilitation. Donating to your foundation looks good. Helping shut down remaining networks looks good. She's trying to rebuild her reputation before trial. Elena discussed it with Adrian. What do you think? I think she's manipulative and self-serving. I also think if she has information that saves lives, we should hear it. They met Bianca in the foundation's office with Julia's security team present. She arrived wearing expensive clothes that somehow made her look humble, a calculated choice. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, but Elena couldn't tell if that was genuine or performance. Thank you for seeing me, Bianca said quietly. I know I have no right to ask for your time. You don't, Elena agreed. So make this quick. Bianca flinched at the coldness but pressed on. I want to help. I know what my husband did, what I enabled by looking the other way. I can't undo that. But I can provide information that might prevent others from being hurt. You're already cooperating with police. I'm telling them what they ask about. But there are things they haven't thought to ask. Operations my husband kept compartmentalized. People he worked with who aren't in the files you recovered. Adrian leaned forward. Like who? like medical equipment suppliers who falsified safety certifications, like transport companies that moved blood products without proper refrigeration, knowing it would compromise the blood but doing it anyway because it was cheaper, like administrators who accepted bribes to look the other way during health inspections. Bianca pulled out a folder. I kept my own records. Notes from conversations I overheard, names my husband mentioned, transactions I noticed. I thought maybe someday I'd need insurance against him. Now I'm offering it to you. Elena took the folder and flipped through it. Pages of handwritten notes, dates, names, details. If even half of it was accurate, this was evidence of an entire ecosystem of corruption surrounding the trafficking network. Why give this to us instead of police? Because police process things slowly. They build cases methodically. By the time they act on this information, some of these people will have covered their tracks. But a patient advocacy foundation asking questions, making noise, drawing public attention, that's immediate pressure. That's consequences now, not months from now. Elena studied Bianca's face, trying to read what was real and what was manipulation. And what do you want in exchange? Nothing. Or, Bianca's voice cracked slightly. I want you to know I'm sorry. I know that means nothing. I know I enabled terrible things, but I am sorry, and I'm trying to do whatever I can to make even a tiny bit of it right. After Bianca left, Elena sat with the folder feeling complicated emotions. Anger at what Bianca had done, disgust at the performance of remorse, but also recognition that the information she'd provided was valuable. She's trying to manipulate us, Elena said. Of course she is, Adrian agreed. But the information is still useful. We can hate her and use what she gave us. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. They spent the next week following up on Bianca's notes. Carla contacted medical equipment suppliers asking about certifications. The lawyer requested documents from transport companies. The data analyst cross-referenced names with arrest records and financial transactions. Slowly, patterns emerged. Bianca had been right. There was an entire support system of corruption that hadn't been caught in the initial investigations. The Foundation sent its findings to Captain Ferrara. He was initially skeptical of information from Bianca Castellano, but had to admit the evidence was solid. Within days, new arrests were happening. Equipment suppliers, transport operators, administrators, people who had enabled the trafficking network without directly participating in the blood collection. Paolo published updates on the expanding investigation. Each article drew more attention to the Foundation's work, which drew more victims seeking help, which led to more evidence of corruption. It became a cycle. Exposure leading to accountability, leading to more people willing to come forward. The first trial began in early December, 3 months after Elena had donated blood to save a dying stranger. Senator Grimaldi faced charges of conspiracy, trafficking, fraud, and 24 other counts. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The auction recording, financial records, testimony from multiple co-conspirators. Elena attended the trial despite security concerns. Giulia's team surrounded her, and Adrian sat beside her in the gallery. She watched Grimaldi try to maintain his dignity while prosecutors systematically destroyed his defenses. He'd thought himself untouchable. He'd been wrong. The verdict came after 4 days of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Grimaldi's face went pale as the judge read the sentence. 35 years in prison, no possibility of parole for 15. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Elena and Adrian. Miss Rossi, how does it feel to see justice served? It feels like a beginning, not an ending. One conviction doesn't fix the system that allowed this to happen. That's why we're building the foundation, to create lasting change, not just punish individual criminals. Mr. Valente, there are questions about your past criminal activities. How do you respond to critics who say you're not qualified to run a patient advocacy organization? Adrian didn't flinch. They're right that I'm not qualified based on my past. But I'm not running this foundation because I'm perfect. I'm running it because I understand how corruption works, how systems get exploited, how vulnerable people get hurt. Sometimes the best person to fight a problem is someone who used to be part of it. The response was honest enough that even skeptical reporters seemed satisfied. Dr. Castellano's trial followed 2 weeks later. He'd attempted suicide, failed, and now faced justice from a psychiatric facility. The medical evidence was damning. direct oversight of blood trafficking operations, falsified records, exploitation of dying patients. His defense tried to argue mental illness, diminished capacity, but the prosecution showed clear pattern of calculated criminal activity. Guilty. 28 years. Bianca Castellanos' trial was different. Her cooperation had earned her a plea deal, 12 years, eligible for parole in 7. Elena watched her sentencing with mixed feelings. Part of her wanted Bianca to receive the maximum punishment. Part of her recognized that Bianca's testimony and evidence had helped dismantle the entire network. Justice was messy, imperfect, unsatisfying. But it was progress. The international trials continued through winter and into spring. Buyers from Switzerland, Germany, France, all facing their own legal reckonings. The foundation tracked each case, reached out to victims, provided support where possible. What had started as a fight for survival had become an organization actually helping people. 6 months after the first trial, Captain Ferrara called a meeting with Elena, Adrian, and Paolo. I wanted you to hear this directly. We've closed the investigation into the trafficking network. 93 arrests across 8 countries. 247 victims identified and offered assistance. Over 300 million euros in assets seized. Is it over? Elena asked. The network is destroyed. The operations are shut down. But there are still individuals out there, people who weren't caught, who managed to hide their involvement. Some of them may still see you as a threat. How long do we need protection? Julia's recommendation is another 6 months minimum. By then, the trials will be complete, most conspirators will be imprisoned, and the threat level should decrease significantly. It wasn't the answer Elena wanted, but it was realistic. She'd learned to accept that safety was provisional, that threats didn't simply vanish because you wanted them to. The foundation grew steadily. By its first anniversary, they'd helped over 200 patients navigate medical systems, exposed 3 additional cases of exploitation, and pushed for policy changes in donor registry protections. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something real. Elena's father continued recovering, growing stronger each month. His new kidney functioned perfectly. He started helping at the foundation, answering phones and organizing files. It gave him purpose, and Elena loved seeing him engaged with life again instead of just surviving it. Her relationship with Adrian evolved slowly, carefully. They worked together daily at the foundation, building something meaningful while navigating the complicated feelings between them. Sometimes they fought, about strategy, about priorities, about how to balance security with effectiveness, but they always worked through it, learning each other's boundaries and values. One evening, almost a year after everything started, Adrian asked Elena to take a walk with him. Just them, no security team for once. Julia had finally agreed they'd reached a threat level that allowed brief, unsupervised outings. They walked to the bridge where Adrian had first told Elena she mattered to him. Venice was beautiful in the spring twilight, all golden light and gentle water. I've been thinking about something, Adrian said, about the foundation, about us, about what we're building. Okay? We started this as penance, at least I did, trying to balance the scales for all the gray area business I'd run, all the people I'd hurt through negligence or indifference. But somewhere along the way, it became more than that. It became purpose, Elena said. Yes. And the work we're doing, it's not about redemption anymore. It's about actually making things better, helping people who need it, creating systems that protect instead of exploit. Adrian turned to face her. I don't want to spend my life atoning for the past. I want to spend it building a future worth living in. That's a good goal. And I want to build it with you, not because we're bound together by trauma or survival, but because we choose it, because we work well together, because you make me want to be better than I was. Elena felt her heart speed up. Where's this going? Adrian smiled slightly. I'm asking if you want to make this official, not just the foundation partnership, though that too, but us, whatever we are, whatever we could be. I want to explore it without the weight of danger hanging over us. I want to see who we are when we're not just fighting to survive. Elena thought about everything they'd been through together. The blood donation that started it all, the warehouse raid, the gala infiltration, her surgery, the trials. They'd seen each other at their worst and best, had fought beside each other against impossible odds, had built something meaningful from ashes. I want that too, she said. But I need you to understand something first. I'm not looking for someone to save me. I've done enough saving myself. I don't need rescue. I need partnership. Good. Because I'm not offering rescue. I'm offering collaboration. Two broken people trying to fix a broken system while maybe fixing themselves in the process. That's the least romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm out of practice. Elena laughed and pulled him close. It's perfect. You're perfect. Well, not perfect, but perfectly right for this. He kissed her there on the bridge, in the Venetian twilight, while the city that had witnessed their transformation moved around them. It was a beginning, not an ending, but that felt right. Life wasn't about neat conclusions. It was about continuous choice, constant effort, choosing hope over cynicism even when hope seemed foolish. They walked back to the apartment hand in hand. Elena's father was waiting with dinner. He'd insisted on cooking despite still being on restricted activity. Luca had joined them, and Carla from the foundation, and Paolo, who was writing a book about the entire investigation. They sat around the table eating pasta and arguing about foundation strategy and telling stories about the ridiculous things that had happened over the past year. It felt like family, not the kind you were born into, but the kind you built from shared struggle and mutual respect. After dinner, Elena stepped out onto the small balcony. Adrian found her there a few minutes later. You okay? Just thinking. A year ago, I was a struggling seamstress working myself to death to afford my father's medication. Now I'm running a patient advocacy foundation, dating a reformed criminal, and somehow still alive despite multiple attempts on my life. When you put it that way, it sounds absurd. It is absurd, all of it. But it's also... Elena searched for the right word. It's meaningful. My life meant something before, but only to me and my father. Now it means something to people I'll never meet. Patients who get better protection because we pushed for policy changes. Families who avoid exploitation because we expose the systems that prey on them. That's everything, Adrian finished. Yes. They stood together looking out at Venice. The city was ancient, beautiful, corrupt, magnificent. It had witnessed empires rise and fall, seen countless crimes and occasional justice, had been home to both the best and worst of humanity. Elena was just one more person trying to make it slightly better. But maybe that was enough. The Foundation's second year brought new challenges and victories. They expanded to include legal advocacy, helping patients sue institutions that had exploited them. They launched an awareness campaign about donor registry security. They testified before government committees about medical system reform. Elena became a public figure despite her discomfort with attention. She gave interviews, spoke at conferences, put a face to the fight for patient protection. It was exhausting and necessary. People needed to see that victims could become advocates, that survival could become purpose. Adrian worked behind the scenes, using his knowledge of how corrupt systems operated to identify vulnerabilities and propose solutions. He'd been right. Sometimes the best person to fight a problem was someone who understood it from the inside. His past gave him credibility with people who distrusted pure idealism. The death threats continued sporadically. Someone would send a message warning Elena to stop making noise. Someone else would try to approach her father during a medical appointment. Julia's team intercepted every threat, prevented every attempt. After a while, Elena stopped jumping at shadows. Fear became something manageable, not paralyzing. 18 months after the first trial, the final conspirator was sentenced. With that, the original trafficking network was completely dismantled. Every person identified in the ledger Adrian had found, every buyer documented at the auction, every enabler exposed through investigation, all faced consequences. The Foundation held a small celebration, not for vengeance, but for closure, for the fact that something monstrous had been destroyed and something helpful had been built in its place. Elena's father gave a toast. To my daughter, who donated more than blood to save a stranger. To Adrian, who chose redemption over comfort. To everyone in this room who decided that fighting back mattered more than staying safe. You've changed lives. You've changed systems. You've proven that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they refuse to accept corruption as inevitable. They drank to that. Then they got back to work, because the fight was never really over. There would always be new threats, new exploitation, new people who needed protection. The The foundation existed to meet those needs as they arose. 2 years after Elena answered her phone at midnight and agreed to donate blood to a dying stranger, she and Adrian stood together at a press conference announcing a major policy victory. The regional health authority had adopted new protections for donor registries, making it illegal to share or sell donor information without explicit consent. It was a direct result of the foundation's advocacy. "This is what we started fighting for," Elena told the assembled reporters. "Not punishment for criminals, though that's necessary, but systemic change that prevents future exploitation. Today's policy change means fewer people will experience what I experienced. That's worth everything we went through to get here." After the press conference, as they walked back to the foundation office surrounded by Julia's ever-present security team, Adrian took Elena's hand. "Do you ever regret it, answering that phone call? Everything that followed?" Elena thought about it honestly. About the fear, the pain, the surgery, the death threats. About her destroyed workshop and the years spent looking over her shoulder. About the cost of fighting back against powerful people. "No," she said finally. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the system was so corrupt it took violence and investigation and near-death experiences to fix even a small part of it. But I don't regret fighting. I don't regret finding purpose. And I definitely don't regret finding you. Even though I'm a reformed criminal with questionable judgment, especially because of that. You understand that people aren't simply good or bad. We're all complicated, all capable of both harm and help. You chose to emphasize the help. That's what matters." They reached the foundation office, which had expanded to occupy an entire floor now. Staff bustled around, helping clients, filing paperwork, answering phones. The mission continued, would always continue, because the need never stopped. Elena's father was at his desk near the window, helping a patient navigate medical billing issues. He looked healthy, strong, fully engaged with life. The kidney Elena had given him had bought time, years, decades, hopefully, and he was using that time to help others. That felt like justice in its own way. That evening, Elena and Adrian went to dinner at a small restaurant near the Rialto Bridge. No security team for once. Julia had finally declared the threat level low enough to allow unsupervised public outings. It felt strange being in public without guards shadowing them, but also freeing. Over pasta and wine, they talked about the foundation's future, about expanding to other cities, about creating training programs for medical advocates, about all the ways they could continue building on what they'd started. "I was thinking," Adrian said carefully, "about something more personal than foundation business." "Okay." "We've been together almost 2 years now, working together, living together effectively, building a life together. And He stopped, started again. "I want to make it official, not just partnership or collaboration. I want to marry you, Elena." Elena's heart stuttered. "That's a big step." "It is. And you can say no. You can say it's too soon or too complicated or that you're not interested in marriage. But I wanted you to know that I'm committed to this, to you, to the life we're building together. And I want to formalize that commitment if you do too." Elena looked at this man who'd entered her life through violence and blood, who'd fought beside her against impossible odds, who'd chosen to be better than his past. She thought about trust and partnership and the slow building of something real from chaos. "Yes," she said, "I want that too." Adrian smiled, and it transformed his face into something open and joyful. "Really? Really? We'll do it our way. Small ceremony, people we actually care about. No performance or pretense. Just honest commitment to keep choosing each other and keep fighting for what matters." "That sounds perfect." They married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the foundation office. Elena's father walked her down the makeshift aisle between desks. Luca served as best man. Carlo was maid of honor. Paolo officiated. He'd gotten certified online specifically for this. Captain Ferrara attended in civilian clothes, looking uncomfortable but pleased. Dr. Rossi brought flowers. Even Julia smiled, which her security team swore they'd never seen before. The vows were simple. Elena promised to stand beside Adrian in fighting for justice, to call him out when he was wrong, to choose him every day, even when it was difficult. Adrian promised to honor her strength, to never treat her as something fragile, to build a life worthy of her trust. They exchanged rings, simple bands, Nothing ostentatious, and kissed while their found family applauded. The reception was pasta and wine in the foundation office, stories and laughter among people who'd survived something terrible together and built something good from it. Elena's father gave another toast about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Luca told embarrassing stories about Adrian's early attempts at going legitimate. Carla presented them with a donation to the foundation in their names. It was perfect in its imperfection. No grand palazzo, no elaborate ceremony, just honest people celebrating honest commitment. Exactly what Elena had wanted. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Elena and Adrian stood in the empty foundation office looking at everything they'd built. Client files, advocacy materials, policy proposals, evidence of work that mattered, lives that had been helped, systems that had been changed. "We did this," Elena said softly. "Against all odds, we actually did this. We're still doing it. This isn't an ending, it's a continuation. I know, but it's worth acknowledging what we've accomplished. The network destroyed, the foundation established, policies changed, people protected who would have been exploited. That's real." Adrian pulled her close. "You know what the best part is? We didn't just survive, we transformed survival into purpose. We took trauma and made it meaningful." Elena thought about that, about the night she'd answered her phone at midnight, about the blood she'd donated, about every choice that had followed. None of it had been easy. Most of it had been terrifying. But all of it had led here, to purpose, partnership, the knowledge that her life mattered beyond just existing. "I used to think I was nobody," Elena said. "Just a seamstress trying to survive, someone the world could ignore. And now? Now I know that nobody is just nobody. Everyone has power to fight back, to choose something bigger than themselves, to matter. I just needed the chance to prove it." "You proved it. Every day you prove it." They left the office hand in hand, walking through Venice's ancient streets toward the home they shared. The city was beautiful in the evening light, all gold and shadow and reflected water. It had witnessed their transformation, had been the stage for their fight, would continue to be home to the work they did. Elena's father was waiting at the apartment with Prosecco and a knowing smile. "How does it feel to be married?" "The same as yesterday, but with better paperwork," Elena said. "That's the spirit. Your mother would have loved Adrian, you know. She always appreciated people who chose to be better than their circumstances demanded. I think she'd appreciate what we're all doing with the foundation." "I know she would. She'd probably be working there herself, bossing everyone around and making sure nothing slipped through the cracks." Her father raised his glass. "To Elena and Adrian. To the foundation. To fighting the good fight even when the odds are terrible. And to proving that ordinary people can create extraordinary change when they refuse to accept corruption as inevitable." They drank to that, the three of them in a small apartment in Venice, tired and scarred and hopeful. Outside, the city moved through its rhythms. Inside, a family built from choice rather than blood celebrated something worth celebrating. Later, when her father had gone to bed and Elena and Adrian sat together in the quiet, she thought about everything that had brought them here. A midnight phone call, a stranger bleeding in a hospital, a choice to help when she could have refused. Every decision that followed, fighting instead of hiding, building instead of surviving, choosing purpose over safety. "Do you ever think about who we'd be if we'd made different choices?" Elena asked. "Sometimes, but I prefer who we are because of the choices we did make. Even though they were hard? Especially because they were hard. Easy choices don't change anything. Hard ones transform everything." Elena leaned against him, feeling the solid reality of his presence. They'd survived assassination attempts and trials and death threats. They'd exposed corruption and built something meaningful and proven that fighting back wasn't futile. "We're going to keep doing this," she said. Not a question. "For as long as it matters, for as long as people need protection and systems need fixing, for as long as we can make a difference." "That's a long time." "Good. I'm not looking for a short-term project. I'm looking for a lifetime of purpose." Elena smiled and kissed him. "Then we're on the same page." They sat together in the apartment overlooking Venice, two people who'd found each other through violence and blood and chosen to transform that into something good. The foundation would continue its work, Threats would arise and be managed. Policies would change slowly, incrementally, imperfectly. Victims would find help. Systems would face accountability. Justice would be pursued even when it seemed impossible. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever was. But Elena had learned that she was stronger than she'd believed, that ordinary people could accomplish extraordinary things, that choosing to fight instead of hide mattered more than winning every battle. She'd answered a phone call at midnight and agreed to donate blood to a dying stranger. That single choice had cascaded into everything that followed. The danger, the partnership, the foundation, the marriage, the knowledge that her life could mean something beyond survival. Elena Rossi had stopped being invisible. She'd become someone who mattered, who fought back, who refused to accept exploitation as inevitable. And in doing so, she'd proven something important, that anyone could choose to be more than their circumstances demanded. Anyone could fight for what was right. Anyone could transform survival into purpose. The night deepened outside their window. Venice settled into its ancient rhythms, and Elena sat with her husband in their small apartment, planning tomorrow's foundation work, knowing that the fight would continue and feeling grateful for the chance to be part of it. She'd given blood to save a stranger. In return, she'd found purpose, partnership, and the understanding that her life, every ordinary, struggling, beautiful moment of it, mattered more than she'd ever imagined possible. That was worth everything. That was enough.